Yo, what's up? So I was literally just about to get up and go get a drink, and then I realized I'm late, so I'm here. No Dynasty Outhouse, no John Hogue, no DLF contributor was willing to come on the show with me tonight. And I say willing because really they're all busy, but I gotta make it out like none of them could take it. So it's just me and you today, guys. If you got any questions, get them ready. Let me know. Otherwise, I'm just going to be babbling about fantasy football for the next however long until they yank me off for one of those big circus hooks, I guess. So let's go. The only problem with that intro is it's not long enough for me to get upstairs and get a drink because I am a nerd that lives in my own basement, also in my parents' basement. What up? Anyone got any questions? What happened last week? Donovan Peoples-Jones caught a Hail Mary, which is going to put him on people's radar this week. I don't particularly believe in it. Not believing in Donovan Peoples-Jones has been pretty good strategy from here till now. Odell Beckham is on the injury report this week. I think he's looking questionable for this week, and he's been questionable on the field despite getting relatively decent volume, as good players tend to do on a limited passing game. Yeah, 14% of the team's expected points is really good for a wide receiver. There's just not many expected points going to the wide receiver position for Cleveland Brown wide receivers. If Odell Beckham can't go this week, I think Mayfield's out, right? Mayfield's out or injured or looking less certain. Yeah, I would fade all value plays, especially with Kareem Hunt gone. Just one more good player off the roster. I think we should just expect less from the team, not think those deeper players are better plays this week. I mean, David Njoku maybe for a sneaky touchdown, but other than that, I don't think they make great streamers because I don't believe in vacated volume. What else happened this week? I gotta look it up, man. I don't know where all your crazy heads are at. Like, which vacated target narrative do I have to beat this week? Oh, there's a trade. There's a potential trade of Tua going to Washington, a three-way trade, potential trade of Tua going to Washington, Deshaun Watson going to Miami, and lots of draft value going back to the Houston Texans. For a start, my thought is I don't believe any of that. I've heard way too many of these just this season. Specifically about these players. I don't think it's going to happen just because, I'm Charlie Brown on the football. Eventually, falling on your ass is your own fault. So I don't believe it's going to happen. If it did happen, I've still got a lot of questions about whether Deshaun Watson will play or how long he'll play or when he'll play. And if they're sending Tua away in the deal, that makes me feel pretty confident that they feel pretty confident they're going to get to start him or they're just outright tanking the season. And I think they, like everyone else, are a little too lower on Tua Tagovailoa, if that's the case. Like, I would buy Tua Tagovailoa. I had someone mention when I retweeted one of those why. I mean, where I'm weird, the simple answer is there are more potential outcomes where acquiring Tua at a lower value right now because people are worried, why would you trade him away? Or people are worried because he's been injured a lot. There's more neutral or positive outcomes if you acquire Tua at a lower value. That's the honest answer, but everyone hates that kind of answer. So I'll put it this way. I think Tua is good. I think he'll keep being good. And let's put it in a narrative form. Terry McLaurin is awesome, and he and Tua will just ball out, man. Or at least that's the explanation we'll come up with it. I think Tua is fine. I think if Miami Dolphins do a trade like that, then I think that the organization is clearly terrible because I don't think it was a terrible pick to take Tua. I think he's been decent when healthy. I think there's plenty of juice left in his potential upside. I think Devontae Parker and Jalen Waddle are good. Jalen Waddle's been doing well this year. Devontae Parker's slightly underrated, but they're basically splitting that opportunity at the wide receiver position, or really for the team. Honestly, the player I'm most interested in the Dolphins is Gesicki, and it has been for a while, though, so it's probably just default. Hey, Jacob, how you doing? I'm in a rebuild and have 10 firsts, okay, in the next 3 years. 3 in 2022, 4 in 23, 3 in 24. Do I just take best available or draft for positional need? Well, I'm a little far away from knowing, like, even who's in the 2023 class, to be honest with you, let alone the 2022 class. Word is 2022 class is going to be of lower quality, whatever that means. But I think you're going to be fine drafting best player available. We do pretty decently at that. The one position to be a little more skittish on, let me put that another way. Out of wide receivers and running backs, because that's normally who you're targeting, unless this is a super flex, be more sure of the running back ranks, especially in the top three. And normally I would just take best player available. The thing about building this way by acquiring capital to acquire capital, it's great and lots of people do it, and you're doing really well at acquiring 3 first-round picks, but you're kind of trading to trade until you feel your team is significantly built enough that you can start trading for points. That's my understanding of the overall path here. So if you draft, I don't know any of the players in next year's class right now, but I do know the name Bijan Robinson, who I think is a 2023 running back. But say he's the running back 1 overall in our rookie ranks and ADP by the time we get to draft season. I feel fine taking a running back, even though my team sucks, because what could you trade Najee Harris for right now? And I would play it that way. Get the player you're most sure is going to play points in every situation, because the idea here is then to keep moving it until you feel your roster is thick enough and flex and strong enough to actually start trading for points rather than value. With that much value on your roster, you could also just start keeping the players if they really hit. Like you drafted Najee Harris. Say Najee Harris is in that draft class. You keep him, or you can trade him away. Now, I would be surprised if you wouldn't get better value for trading him away, because he's really inefficient, but he's getting all the volume. He's doing everything I want. I think he's a top 5 running back next year, this offseason, and you should be able to expect the same you would for Christian McCaffrey right now, who's injured, and people like him better though. So if this was your team this year and you drafted Najee Harris first overall, you'd probably be looking to trade him, because this draft class alone wouldn't have done enough to fill out your roster, right? That's where my headspace would be. I'm going to get the players that I'm most sure is going to increase in value over the course of the season after the draft season, and then keep trading until I feel my team's strong enough that I can start focusing on points rather than value. That's where my head would be at. Outside of that, I can't tell you who, because I'm literally not even in the 2022 class yet, but I feel confident doing. The one exception here is, there's a player every year like Kyle Pitts who's a really good value bet, and that can get a little more tricky instead of production bet. Or in a super flex, you just take the quarterbacks. You just do. So if it's super flex, Jacob, you'll be drafting quarterbacks really no matter what the next best player available is, because most rookie ranks or ADP is really, it's built around the idea you're trying to compete. And if you've purely got your head in build mode, it can be slightly off. And drafting a quarterback is normally always going to be the way to go. But that's a holistic way of looking at it. I have Lance Fields, and okay, I'm guessing it's a super flex. JT, why are you trading for next year? Like if you've got JT, DJ Moore, okay, you don't have much at the wide receiver too. You could flip for this season depending on what your record is. Like you've got enough youth and value there anyway. But still, we're at game 5. I'm just going to assume that you've looked at your old play and you know where you're at and you know what your league is, and you're still playing for next year. And I strongly advise getting best player available, whatever that is for you, or what the ADP or what the ranks say. But really start looking towards, when do I compete? Because there's a lot of really good young players on this roster already, man. So you could flip them for more draft picks, or you could start working trades to get more competitive. Where it's game 5, again, I'm going to assume you're at 1-5 or whatever, and you really can't compete this year because of the way your league is. But I would really strongly consider being competitive next year. So that's where with that much draft capital, I'd looking to roll it all into next year if I could, because I want to win as soon as I can, smartly as I can as well. Yeah, and a 12-team superflex. Yeah, I'd stick by the same rules. I normally just take the player I'm most sure is going to score points or increase in value. And most of those are the same thing, but with quarterback, there's a little bit of quarterbacks get incredibly rare, especially as we start getting through the years. Like teams start realizing the best place to get quarterbacks was in the startup draft, and that was 2 years ago now. And now they all cost multiple first-round picks, except for Ben Roethlisberger and older quarterbacks not doing well, like Matt Ryan probably doesn't. Stuff like that. which is honestly how I mostly try and play the quarterback position. But I was just talking with Zach Reed from the Dynasty Dummies. Like, I know it. I haven't researched this, but I'm starting to feel like elite level QB players having more of an impact week to week than we're typically used to seeing. So the old trade for the old guy thing at quarterback or trade for the cheap guys isn't working. So it might not be working so well from here in the future. I don't know. Unless it's Tom Brady, then you just get Tom Brady. But I think your team's stacked right now. And with all that draft capital, I really think you can start making moves to try and get competitive. Some of those, just off the top of my head, would be Christian McCaffrey right now. He's still going to be a top at least 8 running back next year. So there's still value there. So it's not a complete tank. If it goes wrong, you can still trade him this offseason if his injury just gets more persistent and you get more concerned. But him, Saquon Barkley, you can try to find out who is bottom of your league and get that 101 or the 102 or wherever you think the running back's going to go. And really focus on running backs from this draft class. Because again, even in a poor draft class, we are much better at knowing who's going to increase in value and score points at running back, where it's such a function of volume. And the draft tells us so much about that. But yeah, that's what I'd say overall. Best player available is my choice, pretty much regardless. But my ranks and your ranks should differ a little bit from what consensus is, just where you want to make your own shots. But you're fine going consensus if you just want to do that. And based on the look of your team right now, like I wouldn't be looking to 2024, even though you've got draft picks there. I think you can be real competitive next year. DJ Moore's solid. JT is amazing. And if you have an amazing running back on your roster like that, you really want to start getting competitive as soon as possible because they fade relatively so fast. Well, or at least their value does. And if you want a chance at getting the points and then getting out, you need to do it sooner rather than later. Hey, Bob. When will Tutu Atwell see some vacation targets? Just as soon as anyone else does. He will soak them up just like anyone else. Yeah, thanks for that one. Tutu, yeah, it's a shame. Real talk, I don't know what the Rams were thinking. I know people were saying that about Tutu long before now, but I obviously it's a different perspective for me where I think Tutu was actually good in college. I understood the pick. But I don't understand why they're not at least rolling him out in special teams significantly. Something that seems weird. Real talk, not just trolling me about Tutu Atwell. The problem is Tua can't stay healthy. Neither could Matthew Stafford for like 3 years. How's that working out? But yeah, I get it. He's not healthy. He hasn't been healthy. I don't know the future, and I don't think he's going to stay unhealthy. And I think, especially where I'm not a doctor, so I can't say for sure, but I don't think he sustained any injuries which were expected to be lifelong. And so I'll bet the under on games injured, I guess, because we normally get it wrong. We suffer the consequences of a week to week way too hard, and it's been difficult rostering Tua. But I was really excited last week with what he was able to do in like his third healthy game in the NFL. Last week it was really positive, and then this trade news came out, and so we're seeing positive play, starting to get healthy, and his value drops. That's why I think trading for Tua, especially if people are worried about him right now, it's like Jalen Hurts. There are many good reasons why people are concerned about them. I get it, but the value drop on them is already coming from where they're already pretty decent values, and so if they're less, but they're actual points has been good, I think there are more outcomes where it works out to have been a positive. I actually just traded Tua away in a league just to show my hypocrisy, but it was purely for Lamar Jackson, like because I try and roll good players up that are good values into those higher tiers when I can, and like I get why that team was interested in Tua. They're buying at a low point. He could easily. I think he's a QB 14 in this league. A perpetual borderline QB 1. I'm not even expecting the height of what I really expected based off his accuracy in college. I think he can be solid in this league, and in a super flex, is always underrated, as you well know. Hey, Jacob. Again, okay, that makes a lot of sense. Cool. I was looking for theory, not particularly the individual players. That's good because I don't know them. Yeah. I think I covered the theory in general is lean running back, lead especially, and lead in superflex, lead quarterback, and lead best player available, because what you're looking for is to hit as many as possible, right? And so drafting for team need almost never works out unless your ranks or ranks that you particularly trust, like you follow Zach Reed, his have been fired for years. Different the consensus. I wouldn't be ashamed or wouldn't be scared to move away from it. Best player available is, I know, Trey Sermon, but I've got Jalen Waddle falling to me. Then it's okay to go against it, but it's still the best player you think is available, if you know what I mean. Not, I need a wide receiver. I've been trying to acquire some additional Kyle Pitts shares and Superflex tight end premium. Is there any non-QB you can think of you can move to get him? Here's the thing, Bob. Outside of leagues with you and John Bosch, Tua is not getting names wrong a lot. Pitts is not this value. Like, people like him a lot. No one's turning down Christian McCaffrey for him. I don't think, at least not in my experience. I've got him in a league. No one's offering Christian McCaffrey, put it that way. I think where you're holding the value is slightly below where you're holding the value. So what is the question here? A non-quarterback you can think to move to get him? No, not in leagues with you, because everyone knows they can ask for pretty much anything. And that's not a joke. It's just where you're so well known and everyone knows how the smart play you're making on Pitts. You're gonna find that they are savvy to that, if you know what I mean. And so they're going to ask for a lot more than anyone that I could name. Outside of that, it depends on team situation. The place I would be trading for Pitts, unlike yourself, is particularly when I'm interested in value, because he's going to be good. He's going to score points. Will he ever have Travis Kelce seasons? I'd say I'm pretty convinced he's going to be that tight end one that provides a difference making points per game, at least at some point. And he's going to be one of those two tight ends, that are actually making a difference week over week. Eventually, I really do think he's good. The thing is, no tight end who has done that has ever been worth what you're already trading for him. So I can't. Here we go. Players that you would consider at least. You're not going to go in with Christian McCaffrey and Saquon Barkley anymore. You're going to have to go to the other list. It's going to be Jonathan Taylor. It's going to be DeAndre Swift. Antonio Gibson's everyone's finally figured out, so probably not. But yeah, it's those running backs. I would be asking for something back in return. You probably not. But it's at this point, the way the value's gone, it's probably Jonathan Taylor's of the world, right? My best guess. Yeah, solo me, and I hate it for so many reasons, AG. For a start, I've started to put a little bit more work. Hang on, I'm going to disappear for a second. See, I made a background that isn't just the screen card for this weekly show. I was like, I'll use the same theme, and I'll start decorating it. And then I realized, as you can see, when there's just me, because I use StreamYard to do this show, the camera just is purely on me, which I hate for so many reasons, but particularly because I can't shrink it to where you can even see it. So I just that's as far as I got. I didn't put the Twitter logos on it. I didn't decorate it very much at all. I just did. I can see I was working on it, and then I realized with that outhouse, no one's going to be able to see it anyway. And then you've got the fact I'm always a mess, and I'm just sitting in my office, and I have never tidied that bookshelf behind me, so that looks like a mess. And right now, I'm holding my hair back with my headphones. Do you realize I don't have to wear headphones to stream? I don't. I'm not listening to anything. I can't play music here because of the way StreamYard's set up. I'm just wearing it to hold my hair down because otherwise I look like Einstein on acid. But yeah, thanks for the question, guys. Appreciate it. All right, what happened last week? Actually, there are so many things I actually want to talk about with anyone else here. Something's got to happen in Atlanta, right? Like, I feel like there's a game coming for someone. I don't know if Calvin Ridley's even back and healthy, but Cordarrelle Patterson has been taking up so much of the actual points versus the expected points that at some point, I got to believe Mike Davis or someone else scores a touchdown. And that doesn't mean Cordarrelle Patterson is going to fall off a cliff. To be very clear, we're a dynasty players. I think most of us are inclined to sell or trade away Cordarrelle Patterson. And I honestly think there's actually no value in doing that this year because Cordarrelle Patterson isn't going to get you a lot on the trade market, like a second maybe, which is fine. If you want to do that for your losing team, it's great. But outside of like already selling out, like I am in many leagues for next year, Cordarrelle Patterson, I think, is going to keep up this volume, both in the rushing game and the wide receiver game. He's getting legitimate volume, and that's where a lot of his points are coming from. He's just he's out kicking his coverage because he's a phenomenal athlete. And at some point, that'll regress a little bit, and some of these touchdowns will go to the Mike Davises and the Kyle Pitts. Speaking of which, Bob Gilchrist, and also the Calvin Ridley whenever he's finished with his personal conflict and back on the team. And especially Calvin Ridley, it seems like a really good spot. No matter what position your team is in, I think trading for Calvin Ridley right now is actually a better move than trading for Kyle Pitts, because that's not an anti-Kyle Pitts sentiment. It's that there's a negative feeling around Calvin Ridley for good reasons. In the sense of overall results, he's been disappointing, especially considering where we drafted him. But he's still getting elite level volume. I still have to believe he's an elite level talent. And at some point, this team scheme has to start paying off on where the volume is going, as opposed to where the efficient, amazing athlete like Cordarrelle Patterson is living. And so Calvin Ridley is really interesting in Dynasty. Cordarrelle Patterson is really interested in redraft, or if you're just playing for this year in a Dynasty league. Kyle Pitts, like Bob has already mentioned, is kind of an all-buy, just because the value is not going anywhere unless he Evan Ingram's for a few years. And Evan Ingram is just painful this year. He's still getting 5 to 7 targets and no touchdowns whatsoever. People like to fantasize when Matt Ryan retires. I hope not, because then you end up in an Evan Ingram situation. I honestly think. So let's see what's going on. Anyone feel differently about that Houston trade, by the way? I don't know if that's contrary or not, because I haven't heard enough other opinions, but I still would feel very hesitant about rostering Deshaun Watson, and it would almost make me very disappointed in the Miami coaches. Well, I guess it still has to, because they're obviously talking about it. It's a rumor that it's going to happen, but it's a rumor based on the fact that conversations are happening, whether it happens or not, which means that Miami would be willing to trade for Watson at this point. That seems like a bad decision, front office, for so many different reasons. It's not the caliber of the talent at this point. It just seems like a bad decision. But what do I know? I don't try and backroom GM, so I don't know. It just fills me with less confidence that this team is going in a certain direction. I don't think it has a direction. I think it's throwing things against the wall by the sound of it. Allen Robinson didn't practice, so wheels at Darnell Mooney, I guess. Not really. He was already winning in volume, and vacated targets don't exist. Devontae Parker returned to practice. I'm real interested in what happens when Parker is healthy and on the field again. Speaking of Miami, that's what interests me most, outside of Myles Gaskin just literally trying to rip my soul from my body. No fans healthy. Good. I'm actually just doing my research. I actually do have to do my research for my... I've got 2 articles to write. Every time I do this show, I've got 2 DLF articles due. I always wait till after, and it's a bad idea, because by the time we get finished, I'm so tired, and I just want to go to bed, and I've got to do all my research for my articles, but I was just starting to do it before the stream started, which is why I was late going and getting that drink. Seems like Baltimore and Cincinnati, a really interesting game, just based on the offensive and defensive matchups. I kind of... weird. I mean, both powerhouses in terms of fantasy points, and yet Cincinnati has been. Let's see if I can say it the right way around here. Yeah, Cincinnati's been allowing extra volume but less efficiency towards the passing game. But Baltimore currently has no running backs really, outside of like Devontae Freeman and other calls from the past, like Le'Veon Bell, and Lamar Jackson, obviously being their main running threat at this point, and always. So the path to the rushing game seems slightly limited, just based on what's going on in their rosters right now. But Cincinnati has been limiting efficiency towards the passing game much more than towards the rushing game, but it's also been allowing more passing. Anyway, that's a matchup I want to dig into a little bit. I was digging into teams that have faced Cincinnati recently, just trying to figure out what's been happening. I mean, last week, Hawkinson had a good game. I think I got that one right enough, personally. 15 points. Struggled to catch a touchdown, though. And there is this seemingly, it's not a struggle for the tight end against Cincinnati necessarily. And like I said, Hawkinson did just fine in his what I think was a bounce back week. But even he struggled to score a touchdown. Then again, it is for Detroit. And they haven't really faced any other great tight ends this season. But there is less expected points go to the tight end position in general. And outside of the really good quarterbacks that have faced him, like Green Bay, I put Miami on the list. Does seem to be a reduction in passing efficiency when you look at their paces on a week-to-week basis. Now, does that worry me about Lamar Jackson? No, I'm just not sure exactly how those two pieces fit together. And I think it's a really interesting matchup to think about this week when I write that column up. But anyway, sorry, that's the stuff I'm going to be working on when we're done here. 12 teams. Oh, a start sit question. Awesome. I got you. I got you. Pull up my ranking sheet here. Start shit. Who are we talking about? Stafford. Stafford or AJ Brown? AJ Brown. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm going to lean Stafford there. Just normally start the quarterback, especially a top 5 quarterback this year. But let's see if I'm missing something. I'm guessing AJ Brown until you correct me there, bud. Yeah, Stafford by a lot. I like AJ Brown. Don't get me wrong, but I would like Matt Stafford is projected to be like a top 5 quarterback again this week. He's in a pretty good matchup. The team projection is like 32 points. Vegas is really expecting them to go off again. I'm projecting them for 3 passing touchdowns, for example. Where they land is different. AJ Brown projected to do pretty well, actually. I have him as a top 14 receiver. 4 for 4 has him projected in the top 10. Fantasy Pros top 15. So Consensus has him as a really solid start. He doesn't sit in most rosters. I don't know who your other wide receivers are. But I would start Matthew Stafford over them. I would start both of them if I could. Stafford by a lot, John. Yeah, Stafford by a lot. Why do you think AJ Brown would be close to Stafford? Not Tron. Like, I get it. And maybe you're right, to be fair. But, I don't. Let's see. What could you be looking at? Oh, well, AJ Brown is going against Kansas City. Kansas City pushes Vegas lines up, as we were just talking about. They've got a 31 ranked passing defense as well, right? They've allowed a lot of wide receivers games this year. Is that what you're kind of thinking? Like you're expecting a really good game from AJ Brown? I would agree. I would expect a good game for AJ Brown. It's just when it comes to start fit, especially someone that's cowardly like myself, thinks in terms of probability of outcomes. And I think it's much more likely that Stafford produces 20 than AJ Brown. So could AJ Brown go off for 40? I mean, wide receivers can do that. Yeah. And problem is there is a potential for Stafford to go off for 40 as well, because quarterbacks can do that. And once you balance out the potential range of outcomes, a good quarterback in a top 5 matchup is going to be the start over a good wide receiver in a top 5 matchup, just because quarterbacks tend to score more points. Or you can think about it in terms of just there are more ways a quarterback can score points, because he can throw touchdowns as well as yards. There are multiple options he has to throw yards as well. Whereas wide receivers, especially wide receiver like AJ Brown, even though he's built massive, he's not a running back. He can really only score in the one way. And so, yeah, quarterbacks tend to win by a lot in a superflex decision. That's why most superflex leagues are just default 2 QB leagues. I mean, it can happen. And AJ Brown is a really solid start this week. I would ask who your wide receivers are you're starting them over. But I wouldn't start him over Matt Stafford, though. I mean, you can, though. It's your team, and AJ Brown legitimately has that upside. I get it. It's just, it's not going to be where my head's at. What is the correct trade for Jalen Hurts in a Superflex? Really interesting question right now. I talked to Zach Reed, and we talked for like 3 hours, so that's like the next 6 Crossroads episodes, I guess. And I was surprised that he has not been caught up in all the hatred, because, when I talk about him on Twitter, everyone literally thinks Jalen Hurts is done. He's done. And my point is maybe not. That's it. Just maybe not. And if he's not done, there's more positive range of outcomes for liking Jalen Hurts right now. And Zach didn't share any of that sentiment. He was basically unaware of it. He's not a big Twitter guy. He just occasionally comes on to share a joke. And yeah, he didn't see any real reason to be concerned about him. He's mostly rushing. He's not passing a lot now. Went through all of this on the Crossroads, and I went through all of it on Twitter as well. I think the recent couple of games are heightening the potential downfall of Jalen Hurts, right? That he can't even pass at an average rate. And I think that's exaggerated after seeing two bad examples of that when we've seen at least as many where he's a significantly good passing quarterback. The other thing that I said, or this is what I said to Zach, and I felt like it's one of the few times I said something well, which is that accuracy is different than completion. And we are measuring completions and not accuracy. However, I honestly think however accurate he is, that's how accurate he is. And if you're watching and you're literally not seeing any accuracy over completions, that's a problem. But what I would say, it's hard, whether you're watching or looking at numbers, to factor out the various elements of his game that can be improved, like decision making, like scheming things for him better, which would increase or decrease the amount of errors going into his throws. I think we've seen enough to see that he can be accurate. The idea is, can he be accurate more often, or can we stabilize his accuracy? I don't have to imagine he does what Josh Allen did, which is improve exponentially. It's the biggest increase we've seen in completion percentage basically ever. But I do think we could stabilize back to what some of his good games are. And if he does that, and honestly, as bad as the team is performing right now in terms of wins, in terms of completion percentage and everything else, I don't think the team is seeing enough negative things in terms of his ability to execute the offense they're asking him to that would make me think they're just going to yank him. Now, the things that make me concerned about that, and I know you asked for a price here, but I'm getting around to it, is that they do have a lot of draft capital. And, you know, they could find a quarterback they like in this draft. It's more than possible they couldn't be planning to do it and then just Patrick Mahomes falls in your lap like Kansas City. So that is possible, definitely. What I would also say is there are a lot fewer Patrick Mahomes than we tend to think, especially in when we're thinking in terms of fantasy. And I think the Eagles are very well aware of that. And I think they're more likely to continue to re-roll the dice that they can get Jalen Hurts up to significant efficiency or average efficiency. He's got wheels like no one's business and build an offense around what they have. People overemphasize the quarterback is so important to an NFL team, and yet I think we have an exaggerated idea of how many elite level quarterbacks even get to the Super Bowl. From our team perspective, it's not you have to have an elite quarterback to win. It's you have to have a scheme that makes your quarterback at least decent enough to compete against this league. And I think that Philadelphia is signaling they think they have that. So what's a significant price? Less than what he was being, because that's the whole idea, the idea that everyone's so negative on him right now. He should have been trading for about 2 first-round picks this offseason, and people were talking about how great value that is. Right now, where there's negative sentiment, I'm thinking 1.5 first-round picks, which would be a great value for almost any quarterback, especially at his age. There is significant downside there, so you're providing the other team a safety net. Like, he could be gone next year. He actually could be gone. So you're actually giving that team a little bit more security, even though you're decreasing the price. So the way I would do that is not to offer one first-round pick and a second, because the second isn't half a first-round pick for a start. And it would be offer a good young player and a first-round pick for Jalen Hurts. Depending on how you go about your trade strategy, leave a note, contact them directly and say, is that anywhere in the value range for you? Outside of that, yeah, just send 2 first-round picks, and that's significant risk for you, but significant safety for them. And I think there's upside in trailing for Jalen Hurts at that price range. For example, the way I think of it is the other quarterbacks scoring and I get that he's not these other quarterbacks, right? But in terms of fantasy output, the other quarterbacks that he's competing with points per game right now is Kyler Murray, it is Patrick Mahomes, it is Lamar Jackson, and all of them cost more than that. So is it a risk? Yes. But if I can get him for in and around that 2 first-round picks, I think I'd buy right now. And that's the way I do it. But to be real clear, most people disagree with my values. Ask John Bosch, ask Bob, who's in this chat right now. They normally have a better idea. Bob works a trade calculator, by the way. You should definitely check it out. It's incredibly cheap and gives you a really good idea of the value of different players. DLF also has a trade calculator. Do the same thing with, and I would check those sources out, not just take my word. Me and trades, we have a difficult relationship. John, Dynasty question. Are you talking about this one, John? Stafford versus AJ Brown or Dynasty trade question? I don't know. This was a trade question? Stafford or AJ Brown? Yeah, I still lean the quarterback there, dude. I get it. Like, if your team's losing right now, that could be a great way to buy AJ Brown. But I think Stafford's still playing next year, and quarterbacks are so hard to get. Yellow quarterbacks who can produce like Stafford can with the Rams. But if my team sucks, yeah, I'd do that. Like, my team truly sucks. I'd trade into AJ Brown right now. It's a little bit of a low value window for AJ Brown. And again, wide receivers are going to have a longer career. Stafford's getting towards the end of his quarterback career. But I would ask for a pick. If you're trading Stafford to the AJ Brown order, I would ask for more than just AJ Brown. I know that sounds cocky as hell, but if you don't have quarterbacks, you can't compete in the Superflex league. It's that simple. Now, your trade partner might not recognize that, which is fine. I don't hate this trade. I would personally do it if that's what I was forced into, if that's the guy I wanted and the wide receiver I was targeting. But I think the value is a little off in the Superflex league. That's what I'm going to say to you. It's fine. I'd do it on my teams, but I've screwed up in trades a lot, to be fair, and I've also succeeded in trades a lot. But I wouldn't feel too scared to maybe push a little bit extra there, just because it's a quarterback that's, I mean, if he's getting Stafford and he's competing this year, that's given him a lot. And I think he'd be willing to throw a pick in. I would be. If I was a competing team trading away AJ Brown for Stafford, I'd be willing to throw a little extra sauce on that just to make it go through if you kind of push the issue. What is Sam Darnold's value in 2 quarterbacks leagues? I mean, again, the base value for a quarterback in a Superflex league is either the first, because you think they're not playing next year, or it's 2 firsts and above. Sam Darnold, I know, and he's doing better this year. He's not a quarterback I target particularly. I don't think he has that ultimate upside. I think he's fine. I would be much more likely to trade for Tua, to be clear. And DJ Moore in Carolina. That's who I want in Carolina. Yeah. I was thinking about Christian McCaffrey there. I was like, no, I'd still target DJ Moore in Carolina more than Christian McCaffrey at this point, especially at this point in the season. In Dynasty, your other QBs are Hurts and Lance. You're looking to trade them away. Yeah, I would start asking for 2 first-round picks. Now, you can make that up any way you want. Like, this player's worth a first, this player's worth half a first, whatever. But that's kind of the value I have in my head. Who would I be specifically targeting right now? Well, the all-buy list, it doesn't really exist. No matter how many ways I try and create it, there's always too many variables. But the players I'm looking for, the ones you would feel happy to say are the elite tier, whatever that is to you. And your list should differ from mine, right? Like, you disagree with me and you're going to get some of that right. So, like, you should take my elite list over yours if you disagree with it, to be real clear about this. But in a Superflex league, there are some very clear assets that are elite tier to me. There's Patrick Mahomes, there's Kyler Murray, there's Lamar Jackson. You could put Josh Allen in there if you want. But for some reason, I'm still too scared to put him in that target list. So there's those at quarterback. At running back, right now, the elite tier at running back in a Dynasty league, it's Jonathan Taylor, it's Najee Harris, it's Swift. Those are the ones I'm pretty convinced are going to be in the top 5 no matter what. The discount top 5, the discount elite talent-wise, are obviously Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey. So you can include those if you want as well. In Dynasty, I'm more willing to trade away running backs. I get a little scared trading for them. So all of those players could be targets. And that's the way I would approach trading away a quarterback in a Superflex. get your elite players in line, and then go through your list, see who's on what team and what that team needs, and send out some offers. Or you could just start contacting the owners, depending if you have a relationship with them, or if there's a league chat and you can DM them, say, hey, I'm looking to sell. I've got great quarterbacks. I'm good. I'm interested in selling a third quarterback. In most Superflex leagues, people are interested in acquiring Superflex, especially if they're a little thin at that position. So I would go find who is your elite player list. At wide receiver, I didn't list them. And it's going to be, why my mind going blank? Oh, no, it's Justin Jefferson. It's CeeDee Lamb. It's Jamar Chase. He's in that tier for me right now. And that's the core Dynasty elite list. Now, I also have Devontae Adams and Calvin Ridley and Team Old Guy and Hopkins in my elite tier. You might disagree because there's a little uncertainty around old guys, but I would put them in there. And then I would go look at those teams as well, see what they need, and I would send out offers or contact the owners for everyone that I think is a pure elite asset. If I'm selling something like a decent quarterback in Superflex, then that's where I'm going to start. It's not really about the value. I want to get as many of those elite players as I can. And if I'm telling something as valuable as a quarterback in Superflex, I'm going to start there. So I'm going to add to Sam Darnold if I have to, or I'm just going to offer them straight up and even offer a package where they send me something else back in return for one of those players. Like if it's CMC right now, I think people are willing to add. Like I just traded away CMC in a league because I'm pushing to win. I traded for Lamar Jackson, like I mentioned, and I gave him Christian McCaffrey, who's going to be a top 8 at least running back next year. And when he's healthy, we will be reminded he's Derrick Henry tier in terms of production, right? Like pure difference maker. So I'm giving away like a player I probably shouldn't, but I'm trying to win right now, and Christian McCaffrey isn't on the field right now. And they were, even though they were a losing team, they were happy to acquire Christian McCaffrey because everything I just said that they are very well aware of, that I'm going to regret not having Christian McCaffrey when he gets back, and I know it, and they know it. And I also traded them. Who else was it? It was Tua. I hated trading Tua away, but I was getting someone on my elite tier list, which is Lamar Jackson, and he's starting right now, so he can help me right now. And that's a trade I just made. When I put it in a trade calculator, either Bob Gilchrist trade calculator or the one on DLF, I was losing. It was a bad trade for me, but because of my interest, which is points right now, and their interest, which is value in the future, it was a decent trade for both of us. And we could have evened it out by adding here or adding there, but we were both getting satisfied by the way the trade was set up. And so that's what we went for. And that's not an exact answer, but that's the way I would approach it. If you're trading like a Tua, like a Sam Darnold, a good quarterback, I would go find those players that you consider just elite. You want to have them on every roster if you possibly can, and I would start from there and work backwards. See what teams are around, see what that team's needs are, see if you can fulfill it with Sam Darnold plus, or they can fulfill your needs with that player plus. And it's kind of a little bit of legwork, unfortunately, but that's how I'd approach it, and it's the best answer I can give you. Now, to give you a holistic answer that won't serve you at all, but will sound like I'm doing, the typical fantasy thing, go trade for CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson. Yeah, doesn't do it, does it? But yeah, that's how I would approach it. And that's how I literally just approached it in my league. So, like, if it doesn't work out, I'm with you, bud. And if you disagree, again, make your own list. Who is the players that you definitely, not the values. That's what I'm saying is different here. Don't go say, well, Juju Smith-Schuster's a really good value right now. Yeah, but you don't trade something as valuable, I don't at least, as a quarterback, a starting quarterback who's going to be significantly productive for the next few years, in my opinion, like top 14 quarterback, or top 15 quarterback maybe, for pieces. I'm trying to tier up, not tear down. Now, when you're building, I think you're more willing to tear down because you're just trying to throw as many dice as you can to catch whatever you can. But where you've got a good squad and good quarterbacks, I would be in the perspective, I'm gonna increase this team's upside with something that valuable. I hope that does something like an answer to you. I'm trying my best out here. I appreciate the insight of the value on Hurt. Thank you, sir. I'm glad you find it insightful. But again, to be real clear, guys, it's just one stupid idiot's opinion. Like all of this, I'm working real hard. I try and get better. I try and give you all the information I find and put the hours in, and hopefully that has value to you. And this is just my interpretation of it. Like, always make up your own mind, to be real clear. Not because you can't shout at me that way, just come back and shout at me if you do something after talking to me and it goes wrong. Like, I'm more than happy to take the blame. Don't worry about that. But for your own sanity, like, true and tried philosophy here, it is better to be wrong and you did what you wanted to do than be right and do what someone else's want to do. Honestly, it's always felt better that way for me. That's long tested. Believe me, I followed a lot of advice, and even when it got right, it didn't feel quite as good as getting it right based on what I agreed with or what I thought. So always make sure you're making your own call. Not because you can't blame me. You can blame me anyway. Like, I deserve it. It's fine. But honestly, it's just so much better when you're like, I think this, and then whether it works out to be wrong or right, it's always more fun. Now, if you're playing in a big money league, just ignore everything I said and go make the best move possible. Hey, Ridley Truther. What was I going to say there? I think you have been here for every stream so far this season. And I was going to say thanks. I appreciate that. It's always nice to have company, and you've been great company this season. I really appreciate it, dude. What the hell do I do with Amari Cooper? Traded him for week 1 and got total buyer's remorse. Yeah. Do you forecast it getting better? If not, what are you trying to get for him? Traded for him week 1. Yeah, you kind of bought at a height. Here's the thing. Amari Cooper is going to be probably one of the players on my buy list this season because he's ceded the wide receiver 1 position to CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb is clearly amazing because to do that to Amari Cooper, who's already significantly high in the NFL, like, he's a great player. That like doubles down on what we know of CeeDee Lamb. Without evaluating talent like a lot of people do, I can see it through that. I get that. And that's as someone who is supremely high on him as a rookie based on his rookie profile. So, like, I'm even more impressed. And having said that, Amari Cooper is going to be on Team Old Guy. He's good. He's decent. With CeeDee Lamb there now, he's got more of a top 24 ceiling than a top 12 season. He's more tier 2 than he is tier 1.5. But I think he's going to be consistently a top 24 wide receiver for a couple of years here. So you're stuck in this position where you know you have a good player, but his value's down because CeeDee Lamb's just taken the job. And the truth is, Amari Cooper's just a hold. I don't think I'm going to trade him away for anything I want more than Amari Cooper. So I'm just going to hold him. I'm going to hold him. I'm going to enjoy the points when they're there. I'm going to be upset when they're not there. If your team just sucks and it's sell everything season, because that can happen. I don't know what your team looks like. Then, we could talk about a value conversation. And there you're trying to trade for Elijah Moore plus or a Rashad Bateman plus. A little harder to pull off after we saw his first week. But Rashad Bateman's a decent target as well. And again, it's where you're willing to cast into more assets because you're throwing as many dice as possible, hoping one rolls a 6. And so if you're selling something like Amari Cooper, you're trying to trade him into as many things that you like as possible. So an Elijah Moore on a first, or a Rashad Bateman on a second or a first, and throw as many dice as possible. For me personally, in most situations, I never get a trade I feel good about. I'll just hold the Hopkinses, the Amari Coopers, the Juju Smith-Schusters right now. Little underwhelming than they have been in the past, and I don't think I'll ever I will get a trade worked out that I want. However, since your league's different than mine, that's where my head would be at. If I'm going to try and send offers or get offers, it will be casting as many dice as possible of things that I like. So, yeah, it's Elijah Moore. Jalen Waddle, he might be still a little underrated. I'm not particularly on the Waddle train because I like the good rookies I see coming because I'm a snobby little git, basically. But if you like Jalen Waddle, nothing about this season's been bad. This is an amazing rookie season. Even I can admit that as someone, he didn't have him in his top 5 in his rookie ranks. So if you liked Waddle, like, now's a good time to say Jalen Waddle in a second. Come on, it's Amari Cooper. And also you can do it feeling good, and that's what I tend to try and do in trades. I'm not going to send something I don't think is going to be good. And Amari Cooper's going to be good for the next few years. He's just not going to be that team's wide receiver 1. CeeDee Lamb is the guy. And he's the youngest, so he's incredibly valuable because of it. But that's where my head's at on Amari Cooper. I hope that gives you a perspective, which you can completely ignore, but that's the way I kind of go about the box I go about putting Amari Cooper in for fantasy, at least. Is Hollywood a sell or a hold? Good question. It's about value. He's been awesome, but the target share here's the thing. And you've got it, so I don't need to keep reading here. This is exactly true. What you're feeling on Marquise Brown is as accurate as I could possibly make it. And I could throw numbers at you and rehash everything that you just said, but I don't want to change your understanding of it. Marquise Brown right now is a top 12 wide receiver, which I did not see coming, by the way. I don't say that often enough. I thought top 24. I thought he'd break into the top 24, and it's just been so much better than that. But where his volume is less than it really should be. Now, to be clear, this year, I think he's going to finish there. I think this is going to continue. He's just efficient. He gets a lot of air yards. He's going to keep out kicking his coverage. But Marquise Brown is a guy that I would look to tear up with. And I have him on rosters. Like I really like having him on rosters because I do believe he's gonna finish top 12 this year, but it's more of a knife edge, exactly like you understand that the volume's not there. He's just getting a lot of AR. He's being efficient, in other words, with it, and that's a little more dangerous. Like we saw this year. If he misses a couple of passes, just a couple, then suddenly he's outside the top 12 that week, and that's really difficult when you're depending on the week to week. You understand it perfectly. So what do you do with him in Dynasty? In my leagues, I'm holding him because no one's willing to trade what I would want for him. But your leagues are different than mine, and I play in a league with a lot of sharp fellas who understand it as well as you do, and they're like, yeah, I don't know. And in the leagues where I have him, I'm mostly competitive, and so I'm just going to take the points. So value him as a top 24 wide receiver, but a top 12 wide receiver this year. What does that boil down into? I'm trying to trade him for some of those elite assets again. I'm trying to put something with Marquise Brown to go get CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, or Jamar Chase, or to go get some of those old guys and maybe a little back because Marquise Brown's pretty young. It depends on how that team looks, whether it's interested in future value. And so you have to go look at the rosters that those players are actually on. And again, you should make your own elite tier list. Do you only have to trade for wide receivers? No. That's great news. You can trade for whatever you want. If you want to go get Darren Waller right now, people might be feeling a little disappointed in Darren Waller, but I don't think he's going anywhere. And his volume is still there, even if the points are. And so you could get something back potentially with Darren Waller for Marquise Brown if that team is interested in points right now, because Waller's not doing it. And so, again, it depends on who's rostering who in your league, but that would be the process that I go through, right? These are the elite players that I want. I've got a good player who's going to be elite this year, but I don't think long-term and week to week it's really going to pay off as well. So I'm going to go try and the phrase I keep using because I didn't think to sit down and make a better term up is tier up. But again, you can have whoever you like in that tier, and it's not an exact position boundary, and it's not an exact performance metric. Christian McCaffrey can be in your elite tier. He's in mine, or he can not because he's injured, and you don't like injured running backs. That's fine. You can make up that tier however you want. But when I get a good player like Marquise Brown who's going to produce points this year, that's what I'm always trying to do. Can you do other things with it? Yeah, you can do anything with it. You can break him into pieces, go get Rashad Bateman and something for Marquise Brown, if possible, in your league. You can do a variety of different things. And I would feel okay trading him away because you're right. That volume is a little scary. But if you can't get something you really like, and this is where I'm coming down to the bottom line, I'd just keep Marquise Brown. I really think he's going to keep this up. As random as it is, the top 12 players in volume don't finish top 12 ever. Most of them are top 12 in volume. That's why we can expect regression. But we get efficient seasons, and that's what Marquise Brown is probably going to end up doing this year. If he doesn't, then it won't be the first time I'm wrong. But I'm willing to roll that dice just if I can't get something in that elite tier for Marquise Brown. If you're more interested in getting Bateman plus for Marquise Brown, then you have a few more options. But I would not trade him away. He's a hold, but you're willing to sell. I don't know what to call that. Does that make sense? I hope that's an opinion that helps you make up your own mind, because that's where I'm at, and I have him on a number of rosters, and that's the way I'm approaching it. So far, I found no one willing to trade me anything I'd be considered giving away, but your leagues are going to be different, right? The people in your leagues are probably handsomer, much smarter. I was just trolling my league mates. Nathan, how you doing, buddy? Thank you. I was looking to upgrade him for an elite quarterback. I have, always a good idea, especially if it's a super flex. Actually, again, I'm starting to think elite quarterbacks matter and single quarterback as well. I have Dalvin Cook, Jonathan Taylor, okay, and Aaron Jones. So you're good. You're good then. Have Cup, Diggs, and Deontay Johnson. Okay, you're good there too. Bateman, amazing, and Pitts. Okay, so the only thing that's not elite is your quarterback. Got it. yeah, that would be the move. Nathan, who are we talking about? Sam Darnold. Yeah. That's exactly what I'd try to do. And honestly, the last thing on your list, apparently, the only part of your team that's not in the elite tier already. Really, truthfully, yes, sir. Only the best. Yes, you are. Appreciate you, man. Sorry, bought Cooper before week 1. Didn't he do really well week 1? Again, he can have good games like that. I do think it's fair to expect that the ceiling of Amari Cooper is now a little bit muted because really it's CeeDee Lamb there now, which feels weird because he's the young guy, and normally I'm talking about how great the old guy is, and he is great. But I mean, CeeDee Lamb, and it's pretty impressive. Thoughts on trading Aaron Rodgers to win now? Trading for Aaron Rodgers to win now. Yeah, do it. What is he worth in a 12-team Superflex? Whatever they're willing to give him up for. Depends who they're rostering, what situation their team is in, right? But you definitely should. Aaron Rodgers is one of those guys this year who's going to make a difference. And honestly, don't be so scared of his age. He's probably going to play next year. Again, he's not going to play this year, and then he struggled to start this. He's an amazing player. As long as he's playing, you're fine. Even Peyton Manning won a Super Bowl in that last terrible season. So, yeah, you should trade from there, and you should not be scared to. What's his value? If you're trading for points, the value is what they're willing to give him up for. And so that depends really what their team looks like. What am I willing to give up? Well, again, that depends on who you're rostering. The way I would think about it is I want to keep my points. I want to trade my value. So what young wide receivers do you have that you could throw a pick with to go get Aaron Rodgers? And that's where my head would be at. It's about what I have that I'm willing to give up, because you don't want to trade away your points if you're trying to get points. But you're going to have to be willing to give up your value, which is your younger players, Elijah Moore, Rashad Bateman, even, painful as it would be, Terrence Marshall, obviously, Jalen Waddle. Who else is young? You're going to be giving up a T. Higgins or a Cortland Sutton, not because we don't think they're good, but because they're not quite doing it in points, and you're trading away the value, which they definitely deserve because they're great players who are going to do well in the future, and just going to have to accept giving them away for points. And it's painful. I know. I was just complaining about this on Twitter. I was like, why won't everyone give me something for less? And it's okay to complain about it. I think, personally, it's half the fun. But at the end of the day, I had to stare myself in the mirror and realize that if I want something, I was going to have to give something they wanted. And that's the way I go about it. If I'm looking for points, I'm giving value. If I'm looking for value, I'm looking to give points. And then it's up to your league mates. And ultimately, your league mates are going to set the value. It sucks, but there's one Rashad Bateman in your league. There's one Aaron Rodgers in your league. Hopefully, they're reasonable people. And don't give away the farm. Don't give Rashad Bateman, Elijah Moore, and Higgins and Sutton all in one package. But that's the type of player I'd be looking to put a first-round pick together with, hate myself, and then trade for Aaron Rodgers. Because presumably, if they're trading away Aaron Rodgers, they're more interested in value. Sorry. That's how I would go and look. You have to go look at your rosters to decide, but that's what would be in my head as I'm looking. If they're winning, I assume they're probably not going to give it up. Like, I want to go trade for Darrell Henderson in a league that I want to win in, but he's on a top 2 team. They're not trading him right now, and that's fair, right? They're not. Why would they? It's like, no, I need that guy right now, Pete. Me too. Yeah, but I need to beat you. So it depends what the other team looks like. Hey, Guy, I think you've been here every week too. Again, man, really appreciate it. Pete, going for Clay Matthews looks. Oh, no, yeah, fair point. Maybe he hates his hair too. I don't know. He looks like a handsome man. I'm sure he loves the way he looks. Yeah, I need a haircut, and I don't have any hats in the vicinity, so I'm just kind of trying to hold it all back. Like, it's the best I got. I'm trying to look my best for you, man, but I'm typically 100% a mess. I appreciate it. Which rookie so far you think you missed out on during the pre-draft process, i.e. thought they would happen and they haven't, and vice versa? Yeah, good question. I was talking about this with Zach Reed. I am concerned about Elijah Moore. I'm going to stay on the train because the volume's there, but I haven't seen quite what I was hoping for. And remember, I have pretty low expectations for rookies, like 600 yards, and it's not just one thing. You kind of look at the overall profile, but his volume's there, so I'm going to stay hopeful. But like Jamison Crowder just walked in, and Jamison Crowder is good, don't get me wrong, but when two good players are together, they're meant to share it. Not if one player struggles to get volume over another player, that's my definition of not being as good. And I need him to be as good as Jamison Crowder, even as a rookie, And so I'm concerned about Elijah Moore. I am. I'm not panicking, but I'm concerned. What player do I think thought was bad and looks like he's good? So many. No, I'm not. Terrence Marshall hasn't done it. Like, he's in the Elijah Moore category. He's not doing enough to impress and doesn't even have the volume so far. Overall, over 5 games, it's only been 5 or 6 games. Everything can change over the next 5 or 6, to be real clear. But it looks like I got Terrence Marshall a little bit right so far. So that's not it. Kadarius Toney, I guess we all got wrong, but I'm still fingers crossed. Like, a lot of that production looks a little iffy. I think he's been more impressive than I thought he was going to be, but I never thought he was a bad athlete. And so far, what he's doing is being a good athlete on the field. I don't think that holds up over the long term, but we'll see. I hope he does, because more good players are good. I put Jalen Waddle in the I don't know category, which is basically the I don't want to commit myself category. So if they're good, I just count myself wrong. And he didn't really play enough in college for me to have a full opinion on him. But right now, I would put myself in the wrong column. If I'm not putting him in the top 5 at wide receiver, and it looks like they're going to be one of those wide receivers who are significant from this class, then that's bad. Not being wrong is also being wrong, right? Because I didn't target him. I didn't try and draft him. I don't have any shares of him. I didn't tell anyone else to go get shares of him. I didn't bad talk him, but I didn't highlight him. And he, Rashad Bateman just threw one game. Jamar Chase, obviously, and Devontae Smith are looking like the 3 from this class that are more significant than the others. Rondale Moore is right there with them, to be fair. And that's a large number of players, to be honest. So I expect a few to drop out of it. But right now, Jalen Waddle, yeah, he seems to be one of them. I would count myself wrong. If he's one of those players who goes on to have multiple fantasy relevant seasons, I would say I was wrong on him. So who is that? Elijah Moore, I'm trending a little bit wrong on, but I still have hope. Jalen Waddle, I'm trading a little bit wrong on because I didn't like him enough. But I'm not too scared yet, because Devontae Parker's been neck and neck with him. But again, that's what good players do. Like, he hasn't. When Devontae Parker's around, Jalen Waddle doesn't disappear, because it also seems like he's a good player. And so, yeah, I would count myself wrong on Waddle. And maybe it's looking like I was wrong on Elijah Moore, but it's still early. Everything can change. What are your thoughts on Miles Sanders? The Eagles don't want to run the ball anymore, mainly, and it's really upsetting because Miles Sanders is a very good player. Let's read the rest of the question. His snap share has been impressive, but he's not scoring. Yeah, it's not just that. He's on the field. He's a running back. It just feels what Jalen Hurts does most of the running workload there, which can happen, like Lamar Jackson. But there were still valuable points around for the running backs. Mark Ingram when he was there. Tyson Williams, before the Ravens decided they didn't like him, was doing really good in fantasy. So it's not always like the running quarterback makes the running back impossible. Christian McCaffrey first happened with Cam Newton, if you needed proof for that. But that's what your interpretation's right. Overall, you've got a talented player on a team that I think is improving. The passing game needs to improve, like we were just talking about with Hurts. So I'm positive on Sanders. The thing is, he's probably not going to do a significant running back workload in fantasy, not in real life. In real life, I'm sure he's doing his job very well. But he's not going to have a large impact as a running back this year in fantasy, except for occasional games, because he's a talented player who can do stuff. And then he's just a running back. and running backs are kind of always trades if there's value there. So let's see if I can summarize this. I talked too long for all of these questions. I know. Sorry, I'm trying to get better. How would you tear up? Yeah, sorry, that is a horrible phrase, isn't it? I appreciate the quotations you put around that one. If you're going to move him, again, it's the same process. I have the same elite list, and I've tried to make the list, by the way, and it changes. So yours will probably be fluidic or fluid as well, to be fair, depending on how you're feeling that day, or if you're scared of Christian McCaffrey's injury this week or whatever. So it's not a set concept. It's just the mindset I have about whatever this crappy tearing up process is. And who is in that elite tier does change, but not when I'm thinking about the type of play I'm trying to trade away. So who am I trying to target at running back? Najee Harris, Jonathan Taylor, and DeAndre Swift. Yeah. In Dynasty, those are the quote-unquote elite tiers of running backs because they're the young ones. It's not like, to be real clear here, Derrick Henry is elite, obviously, and so is Christian McCaffrey and Saquon Barkley, who are not in this three-player list for other reasons. So if you can get Derrick Henry and you're winning this year, get Derrick Henry. You could put him on. I would have no objections. But I'm trying to make an all-buy list, which is even if you're losing right now, adding Jonathan Taylor, Najee Harris, and DeAndre Swift seems like a pretty good idea. The value's not going anywhere because everyone's not going to get scared they're old. Now, Derrick Henry's still going to be good next year. This is a bias Dynasty players have. It's not real, but it's real in terms of what you can trade them away for, the value. So that's why I didn't list them. But those are the three running backs. Like in any situation, you could add them to your roster and you're good. I really think outside of major injuries, as can happen with running backs. Outside of that, Miles Sanders isn't really a tear-up candidate. No one wants Miles Sanders right now. Tearing up with Miles Sanders would be a real hard road. You're probably going to have to add way too much to Miles Sanders to get one of those guys. So Miles Sanders is the type of player, like if I'm trading for running backs, I would target because I think he's good. The volumes, like I said, his snap share's there. The overall rushing share for the offense just isn't there right now because Jalen Hurts is mostly rushing. But I'm convinced he's good. I think the team's improving. And I think his value is kind of at a low point. If you're trading that guy away, you're not tearing up. You're just trying to remove the floor. You're looking for safety. Like I don't want Miles Sanders to poof and then all that value's gone off my roster. And so instead I'll be trying to trade Sanders for a first-round pick. I don't think he's a great whatever that tearing up process candidate is right now because there's no extra value. Now, if you have who on the running back list would you trade? That's a good question. Again, real clear. Hopefully you're understanding. I'm not saying Miles Sanders is bad or he's going to disappear. I'm not an idiot. He's good. Well, I hope I'm not an idiot in this case. He's good. He's on a decent team. I think he's going to keep his job. I don't think he's going to poof when he gets a year older and disappear. I just think his value is you're going to find it too low in Dynasty. Like right now, he's a running back. What is this? He's running back 29 overall. He's right there with Josh Jacobs, Montgomery, Jacobs, and Sanders. Like it's. I'd be more likely to trade for them than trade them away because I don't think you're going to get anything you want, without adding way too much to the other side. But who could you do that with? Depending on the team's situations, Antonio Gibson. You could definitely go get one of those three players. If you added a little bit to Antonio Gibson, you could go get Swift. You could go get Jonathan Taylor or Najee Harris. It'd be weird to do this with running backs, but I'm trying my best. If you're trading to a win now team, you could definitely go get one of those running backs for Aaron Jones plus a little bit. And I would definitely be willing to do that because I'm more confident that the value is going to stay there on those three players. And Aaron Jones is still great. Aaron Jones is great, but the value in your league and most leagues is going to be lower come this offseason than Najee Harris, Jonathan Taylor, and DeAndre Swift. So, yeah, I don't have an exact list for you, but hopefully that tells you where my head is at. Honestly, for this season, instead of tearing up, you're looking to trade for players that are more likely to score points. And honestly, you're not going to like it because because Miles Sanders is good and probably a better player with more draft capital. But if you're looking for points for this year at running back and you're trying to use Miles Sanders, well, one, same position trades suck and they're hard to get worked out in my experience. But instead, you're looking for James Robinson and Darrell Henderson. I know you don't like the sound of that. I would not like the sound of that. But if you're looking for points, you can trade for those players plus a little bit for Miles Sanders, maybe if that team's losing. Kind of why same position trades suck, though. But those are the players scoring points. If you're looking for this year, that's where you're at. Hey, everyone, we just went up to 20. Did I say something particularly stupid? We've gone up to 20. Hey. Ask away. I'm giving way over-considered opinions on Dynasty events and Dynasty players and thanking people for being willing to talk to me about Dynasty. Dustin Oz, how you doing, buddy? I've recently traded away Gallup for Knox before the broken hand, okay, in Superflex 1.5 tight end premium, which doesn't matter, but does change the value because I felt I needed more tight end help. Fair. Good trade, yeah. I think, especially before the broken hand. Like, I love Gallup, but he's one of those players where the points are going to be more valuable than the player in most Dynasty leagues because no one thinks he has ceiling, ultimately. So they're looking at a top 24. Obviously, you clearly know that. And Knox had the potential to give you difference-making tight end points right now. I get it. Yeah, that's fine. Now, the problem is where he's broken his hand, I think Knox's value drops from here on. Like we tend to expect tight ends to disappear, especially when they, quote-unquote, came from nowhere. They don't have draft capital, so on and so forth. So you're going to be holding on. Right now, it looks like a loss, but I think it's a very smart trade. You went for points at a position that you needed it at. Yeah, that's exactly what you can do with someone like Gallup. Or Darnell Mooney, to be honest. Like, I love the players because we find them at low value, and then they suddenly have value. So you can do things like this. The only thing you can do with value is buy points. Like, it's the only thing for sale, apart from more value. You can try and get more value, and at some point you try and get points with it. And that, to me, sounds like a smart trade. You were trying to spend the value, as it were. So yeah, I like the idea behind it. Just got unlucky with the injury, I guess. Unfortunately, them's the way it rolls. But I think it's a good decision. Hey, Joannis, how you doing? Appreciate you coming back. I have Antonio Gibson and Jaret Patterson. Cool. On the same important Dynasty team, and I'm really hoping they shut Gibson down so Patterson can shine, okay? Asking, aren't you excited for Patterson chances? I am. I think Jaret I don't know what these players can do. Just to be real clear, just in case anyone's uncertain, I'm not a film evaluator. I'm not even a statistical evaluator. I guess based on what has happened before, what might happen in the future, because I'm just a fantasy player. So what I liked about Jaret Patterson from college is was incredibly productive compared to past players from where he was playing in the rushing game. Do I think he can catch a ball or two? Yeah. I think he's a professional athlete, and I can catch a ball. So Jaret Patterson can definitely catch a ball. And if they want him to, they will. My experience in the stats or the history of this suggests that they won't because he hasn't done it a lot before, but they could. I'm excited to see Patterson get a chance because he's lower drafted from a lower conference, and it's always interesting and amazing to see those guys get shots. I think he definitely earned it, but they don't always get their shot. As far as am I excited about it? Yeah, I'm excited about it every week, man. It's football. I'm not necessarily hoping they shut Gibson down. I don't have an exact now. I can't back that up, but I don't think like Gibson having a tough time doesn't mean Patterson goes off, if you know what I mean. It would be more if Gibson was unfortunately unavailable that week. Then Patterson would get a shot to co-op more volume. Unfortunately, it's more of how running back seems to work. But I'm excited to see Patterson do anything. And the fact he's in the NFL and playing and doesn't die on the field from a lower conference and lower drafted, it's great to see these players get opportunities. And I'm real excited about it, to be honest with you. And it's always nice to talk to you, Joanna. Thanks for showing up. BJ Lee, how you doing? Someone offered me Elijah Mitchell for a 2023 second for Fournette. Interesting. without knowing your team situation, I know Fournette's doing well this year. I think Elijah Mitchell has upside right now. Like he could do pretty well this week. I'd have to check projections, but I think he's fairly highly projected, especially in this bye week hell, bipocalypse. I think it's called. He's probably definitely a startable player this week. And so typically in Dynasty, I'd lean the side of the second round pick here, like because that's the thing that's going to have more value this offseason. But if you're winning, like Fournette's more likely to score points more weeks. Does that answer it? Like depends where your team's at, always. But I'm fine just taking the second because both of those players, even good, are probably going to drop in value again because we always do that. And you'll be able to trade the pick for those players again and get them back if you wanted to. And Joe Herbert, not exactly one-to-one because that team will remember the trade, but you get the idea. Hey, Joe. I saw somebody did a film study on Elijah Moore's routes last week. Oh, really? Know where that is? I love consuming film guys' content because it's just not something I can do. So I like listening to him. They found him to have significant separation on most of his routes. Yeah, I can see that. In that he's recording significant separation. But he wasn't targeted by his QB. So again, talking to Zach Reed last night, and he said Zach Wilson's an issue. And I definitely don't know what to make of quarterbacks because there's a history on them. It's a little spotty in terms of what has signal. But according to Zach, like he's good enough, but the ball placement is off. Was basically what Zach was describing. And Zach Wilson's a rookie quarterback. I can understand him being a little more trepidatious about pulling the trigger in the NFL anyway. So I'm not saying the book's written on Zach Wilson, but that would make sense. Like I said with Elijah Moore, the main signal I'm trying to pay attention to is the volume, that he was getting targets. He is getting expected points as well. I think right now he's got 10% of the team's expected points, which is really significant for a rookie. You just hope he did a little bit more with it. Like, it's nice when all the lights are green, not just the really important ones. But yeah, he's getting volume. That's the main thing. I'm trying to be hopeful on Elijah Moore. But, you know, you can only get hurt so many times before you just start getting nervous. Again, I'm not changing my value of Elijah Moore. I think he's good. I think he's going to be good eventually. I'm just trying to be honest with you. That, you know, I'm nervous too. I think we all get nervous when the points aren't there to match up the volume. Like Calvin Ridley and Mike Davis this year, as I started off the stream with. But overall, yeah, I would agree with that. He's getting the volume. Things look positive. I'm trying not to give up, but I also know I'm prone to tilting. So I might get too scared. I traded him away in a league, but it was for something very valuable. For me, anyway. It might not be for you, though. I traded him for Noah Fant. Elijah Moore plus a first for Fant in a team that I was really trying to win, and Fant's going to give me more points this week. And that was a large overpay, in my opinion. But it wasn't because I'm scared of Elijah Moore. It's just because I was trying to move some trades around. I was trying to get it accepted, basically. That's probably going to look real bad in a year or two. I expect it to look real bad in a year or two. I would say part of my reasoning behind that trade, if you're interested, is that Fant's not going anywhere. And so the floor is there with Fant and the points right now. So it wasn't just a this year trade, if you know what I mean. He's young, he's well drafted, he's a decent performer. He's going to do that next year as well. And the range of outcomes for Elijah Moore, I think, is really higher than Fant in terms of fantasy relevance. But it's also lower than Fant. And also I'm getting the points right now. And so I felt okay overpaying, just in case you're wondering. The Washington football team running back coach said Patterson has natural hands, and they were surprised at that. I'm shrugging my shoulders at coaches being surprised that these professional athletes can do things. Yeah, I think I think he's a very capable receiver because they're professional athletes. Like, that's my default. Outside of being proved that they can't, like, there's a few running backs that they've tried to throw passes at, and they genuinely seem to have trouble with it. But again, some humans do, even when they're professional athletes. The problem here is if they want to target him, they will. And coaches saying they're going to, more often than not, a lie, right? But having said that, I mean, if you've got him on your team, you don't have to worry about that. The upside's there. I think he's capable. He was definitely a good rusher in college where he played. And I think that, the problem you've got there is Antonio Gibson's a really good player, and running back is about opportunity, and I don't think they're going to just go move away. I don't think he's so good that he's not so good that he would threaten Antonio Gibson. Like, I think he's good. I think Antonio Gibson is good, who's already got the job and proven it exponentially more than Patterson could hope to have proven it at this point. So it's about whether Gibson is available or not right now. But yeah, always happy to see a low drafted guy. You know that. And Alec, Carter and Goddard for Godwin and Henry in T premium 1.5. Again, just I don't care about the tight end premium. Although there is cross positional going on here, that kind of matters. Carter and Goddard for Godwin and Hunter Henry, I'm guessing, because if that's Derrick Henry, then we're done here. Hunter Henry and Chris Godwin. Which side do I like? I honestly don't know. Probably the Godwin side, just because I think he's the highest level player there. I think Goddard's fine. I think Hunter Henry's fine. I think they're about the same producers when healthy and on a team that's producing. I think Michael Carter's really interested in Dynasty. He's fine, but he's on the Jets, and the Jets still haven't improved themselves enough. But I don't want to say I don't like him. He's doing pretty well. He's having a good rookie season, at least. I think he's a good player. And that just defaults me to Chris Godwin has probably got the highest upside at the best position. He's the most proven. I would take the Godwin side, especially if that's Hunter Henry. I want to want Goddard. Goddard's been talked about so much and for so long that his value actually tends to be higher. So value-wise, it might be even. But I think Hunter Henry and Goddard are a lot closer than most calculators might have it. What would you look for Derrick Henry? 9 first-round picks, man. Like, if you've got Hunter Henry and you're willing to trade him away to a team that's winning right now, they should probably not blink at most things you could ask for. Trading away Christian McCaffrey 2 years ago. Same thing. People asked for 3 first-round picks, 4 first-round picks, and they got it. The only difference here is that Derrick Henry isn't going to get that he catches the ball boost. And he is further into his career, so there's going to be a cliff in terms of value. I think he's still going to be good, but his value is going to dip because we get really scared with running backs at a certain point, wrongly. And you can profit on that just by remembering that Derrick Henry is good. That's all you have to do. Just don't follow the dip. Expect him to keep going good unless he's injured. Now, what were you actually asking? What would if I'm trying to trade him away? You're 4-2, I would keep him. I would keep him, and I would try to win that league, because you don't. I think about this the other day, like, so much of winning a fantasy season is just capturing the right players. It's not like you made all the right calls, but you got those few performances this year. Cooper Kupp this year. Like, I was on Cooper Kupp, really liked him, said he was a guy who could be top 12 over Robert Woods, and they were both being drafted outside the top 24. But I didn't expect, wide receiver 1, 2 touchdowns a game, and it's just getting enough right that you end up with Derrick Henry and Cooper Kupp, like, go freaking win that league. We get those players in the same place at the same time so rarely, because they're all slightly different players. That's why Christian McCaffrey was so exciting, because it looked like it was going to be him every year. And then injuries, because it's running back. But if you have him this year, right now, I wouldn't be looking to trade Derrick Henry. I'd be looking to win. And he's one of the most important players to a roster this year to try and win. Like, the league I'm trying to win in don't have Derrick Henry. No matter what I do, Derrick Henry team is probably going to kick my ass because he's just one of those players this year. He's still the same good player, but in terms of the points that he's putting up, hopefully goddamn regression can catch up with him. I don't know. I'm 4-2 and have a chance of winning. What production and value pieces should I look for if I still want to win? You've got Derrick Henry. Good. What do you want to add to him? Depends what the rest of your roster looks like. Good targets right now, I think, in a dynasty league. I mentioned them earlier. I think Darrell Henderson, trading for too cheap right now. And his points are solid. Like, if he's your running back 2 or your flex, 18 points is like a really helpful while trying to win. Same with James Robinson. They're about the same value, but I think James Robinson is more likely to hold the job next year. Again, he's got ETN coming back, and from college, we think he was pretty good. But I think James Robinson's done it twice now, and maybe that wakes the coaching staff up a little bit. And Darrell Henderson's got Cam Akers coming back, and I think Cam Akers gets a larger share of that offense. But either way, for this year, I would trade for both of them. At wide receiver, a little more tricky. It's not really where you're focusing. You want points at wide receiver, but I would focus getting Henderson or James Robinson because they're production. And you've already got Hunter Henry. So you're trying to increase the upside. And that's what I'm actually doing on that one team. That's why I traded Tua, because I thought Lamar Jackson this year, week to week, and also he's going to be around, is going to increase my points per game, and that's entirely where my head's at. So I traded a Fant for way too much because he was going to increase my points per game. And he's actually a flex option for me right now, and he was better than Kendrick Bourne. So depending on what your roster looks like, you're just focusing on who can I reasonably, without completely giving up my future, increase my points per game with. I think Darrell Henderson and James Robinson are two really good targets right now. Yeah, I still think Mike Davis and Calvin Ridley could be that. And Calvin Ridley particularly, because even if he keeps underperforming, he's a 26-year-old wide receiver with a history of top 12 production. Like, even if you pay for Calvin Ridley right now and he doesn't quite get better, your value's gone nowhere. It's still nice and safe in Calvin Ridley. I think we're still going to really like him this offseason. So he's an interesting one. To target, Keenan Allen, there's a value drop coming for Keenan Allen, but he should be producing a little bit more if you wanted to make that bet at wide receiver. Let's see. Actually, I don't have many wide receiver win now targets. Those are the only ones that stick out. Outside of that, just go get Cooper Kupp and Devontae Adams. They're win now players who, if they're on teams that don't have a lot of value and they're losing, they could be willing to trade them away. There's a few others here. Yeah, Antonio Brown is going to be underpriced for the points he's putting up right now. So he would be another one I'd put on the list. But I would start by looking for those extra running backs. Because one, Derrick Henry is going to be the guy. But you need running back two, you need your flex. And those two guys are underpriced for fulfilling those roles. In most dynasty leagues, you'll have to find out what your league says. Just in case, Derrick Henry's got to buy, right? And also Derrick Henry, he can miss a game. It's a 17-game season. So having those running backs to replace that game, hopefully they keep up their production and they'd be good targets at a good value for you right now. Outside of that, it's go pay up for Cooper Kupp. If he's on the right roster that they're not winning. Devontae Adams, that owner, if he's not winning, is going to maybe be concerned about his age, and he shouldn't be. And he's putting up points right now. There's some undervalued players that we hope bounce back, like Calvin Ridley and Keenan Allen. Otherwise, you could go get some undervalued age players that are producing, like Antonio Brown. That's my wide receiver list. At tight end, you just try and go get Travis Kelce, okay? Don't make it complicated. If you want to try and improve your points per game through wide receiver, I found Noah Fant, but that's because, again, the guy who's got Kelce is winning. He's not trading him. You could try Waller, actually, but mostly I wouldn't mess around with it. I'd go find out where Travis Kelce is, and if that owner isn't winning, I would try and get Travis Kelce. You're probably not going to be able to get him, to be clear. Like, you don't want to give up your whole future to do it. And Travis Kelce is a legitimate difference maker again. But that's who we'll be targeting at tight end. If you got any questions about players in particular that I didn't mention, let me know. I'm happy to talk about them. But off the top of my head, those are my go get to win now players, I think. Yeah, I figured it out. Sorry, reading comprehension. My bad. Thank you for all the content DLF pushes out. Well, I appreciate it, and I'll take that thank you, and I'll thank you back for checking it out from DLF, while also pointing out I'm not nearly most of that. And there are so many people working hard to put out so much regular content at DLF. I have such a small part of it. But I will pass on your thanks. I really appreciate it. They really are killing it. Craig A. Ruth, how you doing? I'm just here for the vacated targets. I've been waiting. I tell you what, you don't care, and neither should you. But like, I want to make more content that people enjoy instead of just being accurate. And so I was trying to make a vacated targets like joke video where I was walking around trying to find vacated targets. And I've got like a clip of my daughter just staring at me with the face because I was asking, is that a vacated target? And she was like, it's a dog. And most of them turned out to be dogs. I just got to say, that seemed to be the punchline. Everything I thought might have been a vacated target just turned out to be another dog. But you just reminded me of it. You don't care. And it never came to fruition because I suck at that kind of stuff. But I thought it was funny as hell, the idea of just walking around trying to find them. But all I can tell you, Craig, is right now they are not here. I've searched all around this room. I've searched all the way around this street. I have found no vacated targets. I thought I'd found one. Thought it was a Julio Jones target. Turned out just to be another dog. I don't know what to tell you. Appreciate it, Alec. Sorry I got your question wrong for so long there, but I think I figured it out. How often do trades happen in your Dynasty League? This is a good question. Depends on the league, probably the main answer. I'm in a first Dynasty League with a bunch of buddies. There's only been 2 trades. There was a clear 1 and 2 team for the next 2 or 3 years. Yeah, that's rough. If it's a Dynasty League, did you say? Yeah, you said it's a Dynasty League. That can happen real quick. Sometimes they just hit the right draft and there's no incentive for them really to make the rest of the league better. You could suggest re-rolling it. Let's all draft again. This is just not going to change. Or, and this is another, I've been in leagues and I'm in leagues. I'm in 1 or 2 right now where it's that way. There's 2 good teams. There is very reasonably, I don't think they should do anything differently. No incentive for them to make fair value trades. It's like, no, if I don't do that, I stay up here and you stay down there. It's fine. And the trick tends to be more of the other teams realizing that's the situation. I've been in leagues before where too many teams think they're the genius who are going to build through the rookie draft and take on the big guys. And they are obstinately adverse to shaking shit up. And I found 2 ways of dealing with it. One, you just go, or you play pure redraft. Like you're getting Adam Thielen, you're getting Derrick Henry, you're going for the old guys that produce points this year, and next year I'll try it again. And it gets real hard to do that for successive seasons. You can maybe do it for a season, and then you spent way too much value, and your roster's just dead again because they all retire. But there is a path to maybe competing with them for a single year that direction, but it tends to be fruitless because they're so dominant. The other way is getting a little extreme with trades. You got to build a 4th team. If there are 3 good teams, that you give your player, that you start trading good, young, productive players to like the 7th place team. And not in a collusion sense, but you start actively thinking, I'm going to give away my points to this team. That's going to make them more competitive. I'm going to acquire value and look longer term. Or they can do it. They can take the value and you'll take the players to go try and compete right now. Because ultimately, I mean, I'm just spitballing here, but if it's anything like the leagues I'm thinking of, it becomes this situation where nothing can really change because there's no incentive for where all the value is in those few good teams to let it happen. So they just have to refuse trades. They don't even have to stop trades. They just have to refuse trades because they've got CeeDee Lamb and Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. So you're dead for 3 years. And the 2 ways around that I can think of is go all in redraft style and you can be competitive, or everyone else in the league has to start trading with the idea we have to improve the bottom half of this league. So it's a mixture. There's no really exact formula to it. Outside of that, if it's really so terrible and it is friends, probably going to have to suggest a redraft, right? But I tell you what, this is what I'll say, because I'm not a great trade guy. I'm trying to explain value, which I do have a good understanding of, I think. But I tend to be a terrible trader because I'm always into winning. And so I will give up too much, like that Elijah Moore trade. I would check out the other DLF live streams, ask Addison and Cal what they think, ask Justin what he thinks, because they're in much more leagues. If you go check out Ryan McDowell on one of these live DFL streams, he runs so many leagues and he is an awesome commissioner. And there's also the Commission Possible pod with Scott Fish and Ryan McDowell. Ask them, go at them, because they do that pod fairly regularly now, I think. And from a commissioner point of view, what do you do in your league when it's this kind of large disparity? They will have so many better ideas about what teams can do, and also if it's time or when it's time that the league redrafts, because they are serious adults and I'm a kid playing fantasy football. So I would definitely check out the Commission Possible or check out Ryan on one of these live streams, because someone who's used to managing leagues, Russ, who does occasionally come on this one with me, he's a commissioner for a lot of leagues. They would tend to have better ideas about how to deal with that situation. So I'd recommend all of those guys. But those are my thoughts. As just a team in the league, I'll be actively trying to go extreme value, go extreme points, and try to encourage other teams through trade offers to do that. Not collusion, do it openly. Don't be like, we're going to get those guys, but instead be like, I normally wouldn't trade you Derrick Henry right now, but if you give me enough value, I will, because that makes you more competitive and I've got more value. It's a fair trade. It's not collusion. It's open. But at the same time, normally I wouldn't do it because I'm trying to be more points for myself, but we've got to shake this league up. So I'm going to go extreme value. How about you go extreme points, or the other way around? It didn't work in the one league I tried it in, but it is one thing I tried to do. Just go extreme one way or the other, especially if the league is already so extreme. It seems like kind of your only option, other than suggesting a reroll or a redraft. Alec, how you doing? I did trade in that King Henry league for Henderson. Good idea. You're ahead of me. Got him for a late first. Yeah, that seems like so. If you're trying to win, that seems like a good trade to me. Patterson. Yeah. Actually, you're right. Cordarrelle Patterson. Didn't even think of it, but Cordarrelle Patterson would probably be worth a second right now, and he's putting up points. He'd be an interesting flex here and there. He actually is a good running back start at this point. And got two probably middle or even early picks. Wow, you got value back as well. Good. Do you mean Cordarrelle Patterson or Jaret Patterson? Either way, yeah, I think you're killing it. Hey, Craig. I do care, Peter. Okay, I appreciate it. Jacob Calloway, Swift and Tony for DJ Moore on 2 firsts. In most situations, I'm going to want the DJ Moore side just because value. But I'm averse to running backs, and I think this is a fairly even trade. Let's see. Swift is worth 2 firsts, Tony worth DJ Moore. No, it's no, that's the DJ Moore side. That's like 4 firsts for 3 firsts. Close. It's closer than that, but pretty much the DJ Moore side. In every situation. However, if it's the DJ Moore side, that's my answer. But if you're winning this year, Swift gives you a bigger edge to win. And so I understand giving up a little extra to get DeAndre Swift on your roster. And to be fair, Swift is on the elite class. Like I think he's going to top 5 running back in ranks next year. So his value is still going to be there. So it's even if the guy getting Swift is actually competitive this year. In a neutral situation, I take the Moore side. What we got here? Traded Zach Wilson for Drew Lock on a first. Rough, but yeah, I get it. In a 10-team Superflex, especially in a 10-team. I think neither of those quarterbacks are going to be great. I don't know about Zach Wilson yet, but my suspicion so far is, and I don't think it's going to work out. But that's just around. I literally have put no work into that. Just the way the points are flowing, So ask a quarterback evaluate. Outside of that, in a 10-team league, like the starting requirement, the smaller the leagues, right, the more elite your roster has to be. And I don't think Drew Lock ever, definitely not, or Zach Wilson are ever going to be Patrick Mahomes or Kyler Murray, and so they're worth even less to me, because they might. Zach Wilson might be fine and produce QB2 numbers most of the time, but in a 10-team league, that gets even less valuable because roster requirements are so much higher where there's a smaller number of teams. Do I think the trade's fine? Yeah, I would take the first round pick because I think that's probably got more upside in both value and points overall. So yeah, I think he did good. And I don't like Drew Lock. It's just that Zach Wilson's probably not going to be it. I still have Mahomes, Wilson. Okay, you're good. You have way too many quarterbacks. Well, You can't have too many quarterbacks in a super flex league just before John Bosch tells me off. You're doing good. You're fine. Mahomes is your start. Russell Wilson's the start the first 5 weeks of every season. You're good. And you have other quarterbacks to trade away. You're doing well. If you have that many quarterbacks, even in a 10-team league, you kind of pick the moments you want to trade. Like, I want Derrick Henry right now. I guess I'll trade a quarterback. Awesome. Does Locke have some chance of retaking the starter role in Denver, or is that a lost cause? I mean, he might switch back in here and there. I don't think he's the answer going forward. I think Denver's looking for their QB at this point. Joannis! More of the ballsy and frequent traders in my high stakes leagues. Oh, sorry, Joannis. I didn't answer the question. How often do trades happen in my dynasty leagues? BJ asked. Depends on the league. Like right now, I'm in a Trade Addicts league with Russ runs it, and I haven't seen a trade happen in that league for forever. But for the first 2 years, it was like a trade every day, and in the off season, it will heat up again. So it gets very active when people are like, go check out that league, and everyone in that league is deeply into trading. So trades are more free flowing, but it hasn't been happening recently. In the DLF Pods League, where I'm trying to win, despite the fact that I'm probably going to get kicked by the Derrick Henry team, fairly often. 3 trades has happened recently. I've been involved in all 3. I would say in season, it really depends on the league, but where most of the players in my leagues are fairly active, you'll see 2 or 3 trades every 3-4 months or so. Especially if I'm actively working to make trades, because everyone knows they can take advantage of me, pretty much. I think that actually that's part of it. If you're actively making trades or trying to make trades, there's a momentum to it. If there's someone who's interested in increasing that flow, then the league activity really does get hot. You'll notice when you stop sending offers for a while, like it dies down again. Sometimes you just got to be the engine of that league, and sometimes it will be you, sometimes it will be someone else, especially if it's an active league. But you'll see increase in volume if you increase in volume. BJ, why are you taking over Joannis' spot here? You're one of the most frequent traders. I'm not surprised. You seem that sort. Active, engaged, smart, and I really don't like the 3 teams that never trade. Never. Yeah. I try not to blame them because honestly, most of the leagues I've been in, I haven't done a lot of trading. It's not my main way of actually playing fantasy football. I try and draft better. I try and use the waiver wire a lot. I'm trying to increase my volume over there. And I know what you mean. I get frustrated too, but I also remember it takes all sorts. Everyone's having their own type of fun. And, it's what I end up telling my kids. Just because you feel a certain way doesn't mean that they have to do something differently. And there's many different ways of having fun. And if you just don't want to trade, it's fine. Like most people are tired. They get tired by week 5. If you're not actively winning, you don't want to think about it right now, dude. Or you don't want to make a mistake. But I understand it can get frustrating. Why are some people super hesitant to trade? Well, it could be a variety of reasons. To be fair, I'm not in all of their headspaces, but I have been scared to trade because I don't want to make a mistake. Like too many players that I was high on, and then I trade them away, and then they go off my roster. Dang it! It's that fear. There's a lot of I think that builds into a lot of it. It's once they're on your roster, they seem to be more valuable. That's an honest thing that it happens to me. Like I value this guy more because he's on my team, even though the team's fictional in and of itself, and that guy has nothing to do with your actual team. So a lot of it's that, and some of it's just people like to root for certain players. Like I know a Philadelphia Eagles fan who he's just not going to trade you Philadelphia Eagles. Okay, it's just not going to happen. I think a lot of it is just fear of making the wrong move or fear of it happening when they're no longer on your roster. I think that's what often held me back from trades. I can say that. Just I don't want to look stupid, and I don't want to lose, and I don't want to. If I'm going to lose, I don't want someone to say it was your fault. it happens. Players get injured. Things go the other way than we think. And if I lose for those reasons, it feels like it's not my fault. Whereas if I make a trade and it goes wrong, it feels like it's my fault. Honestly, I've come to get better at, I'd rather it be my fault at this point. I'd rather be making moves and getting wrong, because then at least I can know what I'm getting right and what I'm getting wrong, and I can try and get better. Some people don't trade, by the way, because they get no good offers. They just don't get good offers. There's not someone actively sending traders out, and they feel no compulsion because their team's good. So sending offers can really help motivate that movement in your league. What was I going to say? Zach Reed, talking to him last night, he was talking about he normally doesn't make a lot of trades because he mainly builds for the draft, and he's really good at it. So he's got CD Lamb and Jamar Chase. Like, I'm good. So some of it's a style of play, I understand it can get frustrating. I feel the same way myself. Like I say, I was moaning about it on Twitter the other day. Just remember, it's okay. I think it's okay to tilt and get frustrated, but you're not actually angry at that. Like, they can play however they want. It's perfectly fine. But part of the fun for me is high emotions over something that doesn't matter. Just some catharsis. As long as you're all on the same page, then it does fine. And they can play however they want at the end of the day. Especially if they're friendly and they're a valuable member of the league and they're active and they make the draft picks and set their lineups. Like, they're doing what they need to. They don't have to trade, I guess. Love this show. Appreciate it. Open 24 hours. It's much better when Russ or John or someone else from DLF can be here, but I appreciate you saying that now. It makes me feel good. Thank you. Jacob Calloway, how you doing, buddy? Do you use target per route run as part of your evaluation process? No. I know it's a valuable set. Like, some of the people, like, really, I just call them really smart, but really good at this people. Can I just say that? Say it that way so you know who I'm talking about? Like, this context matters over there at Twitter that does the, what does he call it? The utility report. He's talking about routes run and snaps and routes per snap all the time. And it seems to be a really useful tool for them. The problem with routes run is I like public data, and I like talking about things that other people can go find and get interested in data and experiment with yourselves. And routes are really a stat that it really only exists behind paywalls, which is fair. People should be getting paid for their work. I don't have a problem with paywalls, but the paywalls that routes are behind tend to be fairly high. And I and a lot of people don't have like free money to spend on fantasy to get over some of them. So I tend to talk about routes yards per snap instead, or targets per snap, because snap count is actually more publicly available if you know where to get it, and it's behind some lower paywalls, so like it's a bit more of a community stat. It's available on the NFL Fast R. I have some friends who can code, so they can drag stuff for me. I'm also I have a RotoViz subscription, and they have snaps. They have some routes now. Actually, they just did a partnership. But yeah, I like talking about and using stuff that other people can just go look up on Pro Football Reference if they're interested in getting involved, and also that make ready sense to themselves. So I think routes is very good, and yards per routes and target. If you have access to it, go. I would use it for sure. But I'm more interested in that finding out what I can by using stuff that most people have available, and if they don't, that I can make available. And the paywall tends to be a little too high for me there. I think because I haven't used it, I can't compare it to other things. I've also never seen it compared in the way I would want to yards per snap. So I don't know how much difference it is. But based on what I can see, yards per snap, targets per snap is pretty close. So I would say I'm basically using it. I do look at yards per snap to evaluate how well a player is playing. I look at yards per team attempt to assess how well a player is playing based on the relative volume of their team because obviously if the team's running a lot more or passing a lot more, that might change how many yards are available for you even to get. Mostly, though, my evaluation process looks at volume overall, and my favorite way of doing it is expected points. That's behind a RotoViz paywall, to be fair, which is partly why I've spit it out. An expected point percentage, and that's kind of where the majority of how I evaluate players comes from. It's how much of the team's volume is actually going your way. There is some efficiency metrics where are intensely interesting. So outside of volume and expected points, I mainly look at yards per touchdown. That's a really simple one. Touchdowns is one of the main reasons players regress up and down. And if you're scoring too many touchdowns for how many yards you're getting, it's a fairly consistent measurement of when a player's points are going to regress back to the median from being above the median or below it. I have also learned through that, though, that yards per routes run and other stats are very valuable because things like Jacoby Myers happens. You don't get increasingly more likely to regress just because you're so far above or below the median. It's one of the really frustrating parts. Some of it is just about where your workload is. I check out Connor LaPlante. Connor LaPlante on Twitter. Met him through Patreon. He does some, and you can do this for yourself and other people do it, but I really like the way Connor looks at it, which is weighting touches. So not just looking at opportunity, but how valuable those touches are. Instead of having to have access to an expected points model, he just weights the touches based on how valuable they are. It's a really clever way of doing it without having to have an expected points model available to you. So sorry, you asked me about stats. I'm going to talk about those for way too long. I would say I use a corollary of yards per route run, which is yards per snap. I don't particularly use routes just because I'm not behind those paywalls, but I think it's a very valuable stat. I wish I could, test it a little bit. So much smarter and better than this people than me have tested it, and they say it's good though. So I take it on faith. And check out what does he call it? Context Matters on Twitter. I forget even his actual name, but he does a utilization report for I think it's PFF. Anyway, he's a huge fan of it, and as far as I can tell, like he's as good as it gets to reading usage. So yeah. Do you believe Donovan Peoples-Jones for the rest of the? I talked about him at the start. No, I don't. He caught a Hail Mary last week, I think. We're going to get into a vacated targets argument, aren't we, Mr. Open 24 Hours? Look, the opportunity is more available. I don't think he co-opts a significant target share because I don't think that's the type of player he is. I think without Hunt, without Chubb, without Baker Mayfield, I think this offense is just overall worse. Does that mean he has more access to opportunity and could do well because he's an amazing athlete and he's huge? Yeah. And do I think he sustains that through a season? I don't. I just don't. I would love for him to prove me wrong because, more good players is good. But just based on what tends to happen and what he's done so far, comparing that to what I know of has happened in the past, I would expect it to look like an outlier game. Doesn't mean he's a bad NFL player or not useful for a team or #bad. It just means that wouldn't be the expectation wouldn't be what I expect to happen with his volume. That's where I'm at. But right now, it's probably cheap enough. Like, I don't mind if you've got him on a roster. No problem with having hope or anything. I'm not saying never roster him. But yeah, that's my answer. No. Who are a few players you'd be aiming to acquire lately that you feel might increase in value? Who are a few players you might be looking to sell high? That's been the conversation this entire time, hasn't it? All right. Value players. Dynasty long term, definitely dead this season. Juju Smith-Schuster. Sorry, I still like his value continues to drop. His production history is what it is. Deontay Johnson is clearly the guy in Pittsburgh. I don't think it's Claypool. So I got that one right. But Juju's value is below what his value could be in more potential range of outcomes, I think. So he's on the list. I think Devontae Parker that I mentioned earlier is interesting. Not that Waddle is a lie, but I think they could be sharing. And if the team improves or Parker can stay healthy this season, that's interesting. And here we're talking about very low value guys, which just tends to be how I go about it. So targeting those type of players. Outside of that, I target players outside the top 24 that I think should be valued inside the top 24. I don't know what's going to happen to Higgins or Sutton this offseason, but there's a world where they start to get ranked outside the top 12 because there's so many good wide receivers, right? If that's the case, I'm buying Sutton and Higgins. Like, there's no reason to fear them as far as I can tell, but I said the same thing about Juju. Let's see. And they're in the high price, like they cost. Like, people aren't giving them away for seconds, you know what I mean? But they're players that I'm really interested in. And then you've got the old guy list. Keenan Allen, Calvin Ridley, Lockett, DeAndre Hopkins, everyone who's old and we know is Amari Cooper, everyone that is old who we know is good and is more likely to produce at the same range. They're not going to suddenly become more than they were or less than they were, but they tend to drop in value just because they're old. They tend to be values that I try and go out and buy as well. I've started to fade the Odell Beckhams and the Allen Robinsons, those who just perpetually underperform what we've seen them do before. Just because it's not... We've just seen a trend recently of those guys dropping off and then staying dropped off. It's not because they're getting older. I don't really know why it is, because again, I'm not an evaluator, but it's happening regularly now for me not to ignore it. Their value has to significantly drop before I add them, which is interesting because I think Allen Robinson is going to be a big buy now candidate this year because he's huge. He's good. He's been amazing before. I think he's a very good player. And he's been underperforming. At some point, that underperformance is just a signal I'm going to have to start listening to. Off the top of my head, those are the players that I'm sticking with. Outside of the elite tiers that I was trying to name off before, which is kind of, if you can get them, you get them. No, I haven't done the research to make a good list. Like this offseason, I wrote a third year and a second year breakout article for DLF. This year, I did pretty well. I mean, it had Debo, Deontay, it had Marquise Brown on it. Looks like I'm missing on Terry McLaurin, but I do not feel bad about it because the volume's there. It just hasn't quite been able to convert it into as many points, but I'm definitely not so sad about buying him or liking him, this offseason. And when I get around to that research in the offseason, I'll have a better answer for you. But off the top of my head, at wide receiver, that's who I'm aiming at. At tight end, values. Sorry, I keep getting hair in my mouth. Like I said, I just traded Noah Fant. He's becoming the Mike Gesicki now. And people are forgetting that what he's doing is actually good. It's just not Travis Kelce because most players aren't Travis Kelce. Gesicki has been putting up points. So I think he's probably fairly valued at this point, but check if you're interested in tight ends. But I think Noah Fant's value is going to be slightly muted from what he's been doing. Darren Waller as well. At quarterback, in terms of players that are valued below where they should be, I think Tua. That's why we started the stream. I think he's going to be a little undervalued. Jalen Hurts, I think he might be a little undervalued despite the production. In fact, because of the production. Any other? Justin Fields, obviously, because I haven't seen him do much yet at anything, and I really think he has potential to do a lot more in the NFL when he gets on the field consistently. But again, let's look what's happening with Tua. There is downside there, but I'm willing to make that bet. Yeah, off the top of my head, that's about all I can come up with. As far as selling on, good question. I guess you could put Marcus Brown in that category because of what we were talking about before. I think it's going to continue, but it's a little bit more knife edge. And where I just tend to target volume, I think his current upside is outmatched. He's going to finish top 12. I think he's going to be top 12 this year. And I think the volume's real, but the volume is below top 12 level. And I don't think that efficiency keeps up. So while liking him a lot, and especially for this year, I think overall he's a player I would be looking to move for even better player or potentially value. So he hits the list. Who else is in the top 12 over here? I'm not selling the old guys. I don't do that. I would sell Mike Williams personally, but that's probably just because I didn't see it. That might be because I didn't see it coming, but it was for reasons. I think Keenan Allen's a volume guy there. Mike Williams has been amazing, so you don't have to listen to me, but I think he's the more likely one to stop being exactly what he is right now. So high. Pittman. He's been good. I just don't think that volume's going to keep up. Long term, he's a good player. Too many people equate fantasy to being good or bad. In my opinion, Carlos Pittman's a good player. He's playing in the NFL. It's like 2% of all players that pick up pads ever get there. Of course, he's amazing. We're not really talking about that. But that's also true for Donovan Peoples-Jones. We're grading on a curve, and Michael Pittman's good. I just think he's not beyond the horizon of the curve where Devontae Smith is. I think he's more of a Corey Davis. And Corey Davis has always been interesting because he's been lower valued. And Michael Pittman's probably a little higher valued because of his age, which we shouldn't value players on. And therefore, he'd hit the sell list for me. Can't sell Chenault anymore. It's not worth it. Yeah, that's about all I can come up with off the top of my head. Are you buying, holding, or selling Ayuk? At this point, everything's in question of how much and what situation the team's in, right? Ayuk for a first, I will add him to my roster for a first-round pick, unless I'm winning, in which case I can use that first to do other things that get me points, like Darren Henderson. But yeah, as a value line, Ayuk for a first-round pick all day, every day. That was an amazing rookie season. I think he's going to be good in the NFL. I think his value will increase at some point. All of the above, if I'm trying to win, I can do more with that value, though. I'm talking Henderson, James Robinson, and even Cooper Kupp, but in general, yeah. Thoughts on Zach Moss? Frustrating. He's a rushing running back in a tandem. He's a good player who apparently needs a tandem as well. Like Singletary helps him, Josh Allen running help. They work well as a unit. So it's what we're seeing. I expect the production to be what we're seeing. If Singletary's injured and Josh Allen stops rushing, I think Zach Moss to underperform, because right now as a unit, they're good together. I really think. And that's why the team's rolling it out that way. So I think he's going to be he's a great flex or bye week play, if you know what I mean, because he can go for 15 a touchdown any game. It's an effective offense. He's a capable player in it. I think he's a good player. I don't think he's going to work his way into one of those megalithic, almost bell cow roles, because the NFL doesn't do that anymore. And that's not really the way running back production works overall. You don't work your way into a higher workload. It's one of the interesting things going on about Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams right now, because clearly the team like Williams. Clearly Williams is very good, but so is Melvin Gordon. You can't work your way. Why would you sit Melvin Gordon? Because Javonte Williams is good, but so is Melvin Gordon. Like, I got both. It's like Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Why would I stop using one to use the other more outside of a fantasy lens? Like, I got two great players, and they do a lot. And it's one of the really frustrating parts about running back, where there's only so many on the field every time. And if you've got two good ones, that's just what it is. I don't think that's what's happening with Zach Moss. I think he's very effective in this situation. I think the team's happy with it. I think he's probably happy with being part of a great team, And I don't expect it. I don't really want it to change, because this is a great situation for him. It seems to work, but it does mean as a fantasy player, you're starting him here. And I started him last week just hoping for that touchdown. Didn't happen. A couple of weeks before that, he was a great start, and he's going to be one of those players. I think he's very good, though. Dynasty Superflex, what trade away value for J.K. Dobbins? What's the trade away value? Your rebuildy. I know. Isn't Dobbins one of those players people trade for when they're rebuilding? Because he's not going to score any points this year, obviously. And we're hoping he goes through rehab, he's healthy, and he's available in that season, I guess. And so most players trading for him or rostering him are probably going to want points, I would guess. And if they don't need points because they're not winning, they'll probably just hold J.K. Dobbins. If he's on your team and you're looking to trade him away to someone else, I assume you're trying to buy points. If not, probably just hold J.K. Dobbins outside of getting 2 first-round picks. I don't know why that's my answer to most value questions. The value of 2 first-round picks, right? If you can trade him for a wide receiver, that's a little safer. Like, you can trade him for an undervalued wide receiver, like a Calvin Ridley. I don't know he's that undervalued at this point. And that's just because if you're rebuilding, wide receivers are quote-unquote safer. They have longer careers. Their value tends to be more stable, especially before the age of 27. And so it's just a nice floor play, value-wise. And you could do that. You could go get Rashad Bateman, Elijah Moore, a young wide receiver that's less proven than DJ Moore and Calvin Ridley, and add a pick to it. That's 2 first-round pick value. And it's fair to either side, really, because that's a good running back who could do a lot more for a team. But you're getting a wide receiver in a first-round pick where the floor of the value is a lot more stable. That's just me, though. Patrick, you're talking to Joanna, but I'm going to read it. Anyway, my advice is to ask other managers what usually happens when they complete a trade. What I've noticed is that different people look different approaches, and sometimes mine is not right. That's fair point, too. Talking to your league mates, literally, Zach called me out for this last night. He was like, you just don't want to do the work of getting to know people, Pete. And it's true. If something's frustrating in your league, honestly, an open communication portal, like starting a DM thread, or what are some of those conversation apps? Like some of ours are on Slack. We've got some on Voxer. And if you can try to encourage communication, even if it doesn't get what you want done, tends to be more grease to the wheels of a dynasty league spinning more smoothly, because you can say, hey, honestly, like, should I have done something differently? Did you not enjoy my joke? Should I have asked you about what trade you wanted first? Because everyone's an individual, and they like to be approached a certain way or offered a certain thing. Like if you happen to be playing in a league with Zach Reed, never offer him a second-round pick. Like I've offended him by offering him second-round picks before. He doesn't value them, doesn't want them. So yeah, I think Patrick's got a great point here. Probably better than anything I said. Like, talk to your league somehow. It's probably the best solution to most things. Right, no problem. Whatever I did. P2 Thar. I'm trying. What's your thoughts on the value of Joe Mixon? 12-team, 1 QB, PPR, no premium. I need to move him as I'm definitely rebuilding. I mean, go to your league standings page, look at the first 3 teams, see which one's most running back needy, and go offer them for a young wide receiver and a first-round pick. That's the process, as it were. And what's his actual value? It's difficult. I was just complaining about this on Twitter, like I said. And John Bosch pointed out, one of the things you have to consider right now is there are literally probably 3 teams in your league that have any interest in Joe Mixon. Now, that smaller market means they can be a little more stingy, because who else are you going to trade them to? The 2 and 4 team has no interest in trading for your Joe Mixon, right? So there's only a couple teams that are interested in it. So you're going to have to be a little more, you're going to have to be aware of that. But if you've got a top 3 team who just lost Nick Chubb, they're probably willing to make a better trade than the team who would just trade for Joe Mixon because he's a running back and they're trying to win. And especially since they're already winning, so they don't need Joe Mixon, but it would be nice. So it really depends on what those teams look like. So I'd go take a look at their rosters. What do I think his value is? I think for Joe Mixon, I would want something like Rashad Bateman and a first, or Elijah Moore and a first. Rashad Bateman and a second, Elijah Moore and a first. Does that seem fair? Yeah, I think that's fair. Or I would be trying to trade even higher, a Joe Mixon and a first. And does that team have like a Jamar Chase or a CeeDee Lamb or a Justin Jefferson that they're willing to give up for a running back? Again, that depends on what their situation is. But yeah, you could package up someone like Joe Mixon enough to get one of those wide receivers if they're in the right situation. His value should be high to a team that needs a running back and is competitive this year. Kind of muted for anyone that doesn't need a running back and is competitive for this league. And almost nothing for anyone else. However, you might get a first-round pick off another team that's in the middle or even at the end, because he should be worth a first to pretty much everyone. What are your thoughts on Bateman and Javonte Williams rest of season? Bateman looked promising in his first game. Yeah, and I'm trying not to get carried away by it, because I had him wide receiver 2 in this class. Like, I have a lot of high hopes for Mr. Bateman. And he looked good. Or pretending he watched. His stats looked good. Really encouraged. But again, through 5 weeks, I cannot say for sure that Jalen Waddle is going to be a top 24 wide receiver in the future. I mean, I've had 5 games to see his stats, so I don't know. I'm just sticking by my rookie profile. I believe it. I believe he's going to be good. I don't think it means Marquise Brown is going anywhere. That's the underlying thing. He's going to keep being what he's being. Very efficient, slower volume, but top 12 wide receiver. And Mark Andrews is the main receiving threat in that offense again, which is great to see, frankly, because he's a very good player. I think he's a good engine for a receiving team. What else can I say? Bateman is on my all-buy list. I truly believe in it, and especially where he should be. I said, quote unquote, valued right now. I want to add Bateman to my team. The only players I want to add out of this class, I don't want to add more to my team, is Jamar Chase. He's the only guy I really would target more out of this class so far. I would say Smith has jumped him. Smith may have jumped Bateman. We'll see how the season wraps up. But right now, Bateman, I think Smith was like wide receiver 3 for me. He's kind of above Bateman right now. Nothing Bateman has done. It's because I've seen Smith being so good so long that I almost have to give him a little value jump. They're at least similar price right now. In my head, what you can get in leagues is different. And as for Javonte Williams, I think he's good. I think he's very good. I think everything we thought about him in the off season was true. Unfortunately, Melvin Gordon is still just as good. And running back is a bad opportunity, and this team is very comfortable and willing to keep it going. I think FS Spaceman, Dave Wright, he had the right tweet last week, and I asked him about it because I was really hoping Williams would work into a bigger role this week again. But Spaceman Dave Wright was like, no, it's not coming. They're both performing about the same way, yards before and after contact are reversed, but he prophesized that there would be no breakout, that it's going to be this committee to the end. I'm a little more hopeful, just because teams do seem to like taking their rookie running back on the road, like they did with Smith and Akers last year at the end of the season. But ultimately, I think it's probably going to be stable. Outside of that, Javonte Williams is a strong buy in Dynasty. As for a running back, he's young, value's not going anywhere, and I'm pretty convinced after seeing this many games that he's as good as we hoped he was. It's just that Melvin Gordon's also good. So those are my thoughts. Patrick again, follow up on selling Pittman. Okay. Do you have one name or pick value that makes you pull the trigger to trade him away? I mean, yeah, you could probably send me a lot of trades that I would insta accept for Pittman. This goes back to who's on my list, and I really don't have a very clear list. I'm very team dependent. My team situation entirely changes what I'm interested in, But let's say just neutral situation. Who do I insta accept? Rashad Bateman, Jamar Chase, Devontae Smith, instantly. Obviously, Jamar Chase, that wasn't a good example. Everyone would instantly accept that. Javonte Williams, I would instantly accept that for Pittman, but that's still probably a little too unfair. Let's come down in the ranks. Who would I instantly accept that's lower in probably consensus ranks right now? I really don't know where Higgins and Sutton are in everyone's ranks. It's going to be interesting to see how that works out. Those players are all, I value them more than Pittman right now. Trying to think of anyone a little lower. No, that's about where I have him. I value him like I value Corey Davis. I like the player. I don't think we're ever going to see a big increase, but I think they're good. They're proficient in the NFL. Teams are going to use them, especially when you don't have an elite talent to take it away. Outside of Jonathan Williams, obviously. So, yeah, I don't think I could put him lower than that. If you were to offer me a first-round pick for Pittman and I'm in a neutral situation, it's even. I don't care. That doesn't seem like a benefit either side to me. If I'm losing, I'm taking the pick. Insta accept. Yeah, honestly, probably the lowest answer is probably... Yeah, it's probably Rashad Bateman. Just because I want to say Rashad Bateman again. Thanks for your analysis. I wouldn't call anything I do analysis, but I do appreciate it. I'm not trying to reject the compliment or the whatever. Nathan Lawson, I'm tired of Melvin Gordon. Just let my boy Williams shine. Appreciate the sentiment. But again, I mean, not to take away from your fun, Javonte Williams is good. I look forward to seeing more of him in the future, but just for the fun, like, isn't it also kind of cool to see just like the guy who old guy in the NFL who's younger than me, by the way, just be just as good as the young incoming talent. That's kind of fun too, man. Like, light us up for Melvin Gordon. He's still killing it. And he's been traded away. He's been devalued in fantasy. Teams have given up on him, and he's still good, man. Like, that's kind of fun too. But I do like in fantasy. Yeah, I get it. Outlook and Judy, don't know. Like I'm a magic 8 ball. I just shake myself. Outlook and Sutton. I'm more interested in Sutton on that offense, which is weird because usually I go for the smaller volume player, but I think that Sutton in that offense, I've seen more from Sutton. He's a high volume player himself. So I think it's Sutton for me. Having said that, every time Judy's been on the field, and he hasn't been injured long. Like, he had a rookie season. He's not injury prone or nothing. And he's very impressive. He was very impressive as a route runner and as a volume player. I think those two together on a team, especially if they can improve any other part of their offense, like Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon are good, Fante's good. They need a quarterback. Teddy Bridgewater is fine, and if all of those pieces have been healthy this season, I think Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton would both have done well. They would have split the target share evenly. Noah Fant would have been fine as well. With effective average QB play, I really think they could have smashed a lot more than they've been able to so far. Unfortunately, it's just been up and down with injuries. Ultimately, I'm hopeful for Jerry Jeudy. Right? Actually, I'll put him on my sell though list. Like, I think he's currently valued where I would have him valued, and I'm willing to trade that away if I get other things that I like that are scoring points, or maybe I think has a higher upside. I have him that second tier of wide receivers. I think he's going to be good. I think he's going to have top 24 seasons. I think he's going to be fruitful when healthy. He's going to have a good time, and people are going to enjoy watching him. So yeah, it's just I don't ultimately see a more upside from where his value is. I've been wrong plenty, but he's kind of valued where I'd have him right now, which isn't a bad thing. He's valued accurately. He's valued well. But yeah, off-season ranks can be crazy. If Jerry Jeudy craters an ADP, I'll be on the all by Jerry Jeudy list. I haven't seen anything that concerns me. Like, he's been good. Trying to find, I think, yeah, here we are. Richard Davis. How long have we been here? 2 hours. Okay. Richard Davis. So I made a couple of trades in an 0-6 team. Yeah, me too, man. I have so many bad teams this year. It's not even funny. Just wanted to know what you think of a 10 team. Okay, that's important. Superflex start, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, 2 flex. Okay, I traded my 22 first. All right, most likely the 101, yeah, and a second for T Higgins and for CD. Wow, that's a hefty price, man. In a super flex, that's probably a quarterback. It's probably an overpay. If it was non-super flex, I would say that's better because 101 is probably a running back, and we shouldn't let running backs stand in a way of getting someone like CD Lamb, to be honest with you, despite probably being great. I can't blame you. I can easily see me doing that trade. Don't let me leave you with any other impression. I don't think you should hang your head. I actually really enjoy the fact that you just went and got CD Lamb. Like, whatever it costs, I'm getting CD Lamb. But this looks hefty to me. If it's a 101, that's a quarterback, a second, which is nothing, and T Higgins is significant. I don't hate it, but it's probably an overpay. Best guess. Outlook on Ruggs. Yeah, I think we're seeing what he is. He's a good NFL player. He can go deep. He can catch the ball. He's fast. The Raiders, kind of weird-ass team. Volume goes to tight end. Well, not since Gruden's been out. Actually, I wonder if that's connected, the tight end position being utilized and Gruden being gone. I don't know. But yeah, we're seeing what he is. He's a great player. He's great in the NFL. He's going to do this job, and NFL teams are going to like it. It's a very valuable skill set for an NFL team. The problem within fantasy is that we're not playing or anything close to NFL football. And we need consistent, regular, high-producing points. Having said that, Ruggs is so devalued. He's great. Like, slot him in for a good week or as a bye week filler, and he can go off. As we've seen this year, I think this is what he is. Deshaun Jackson light. People forget that. They don't forget, but just to highlight, the reason Deshaun Jackson is always a go-to comparison is he didn't just do that. He did that consistently. Like, you could start him 4 out of 7 weeks, which is good for any wide receiver. And that is really unusual for these down-the-field deep threat guys. Outside of that, Ruggs is an amazing, is actually a high-end version of that, I would say. But it's frustrating in fantasy because you can't roll him out like you do CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson. And he's not going to. I think that's everything I think on Ruggs. I think we're seeing what we're going to see. This is who Ruggs is, and it's good. Then traded away Mark Andrews for a 2024. Wow, that's far away. First and Jacoby Myers. I would have kept Andrews, but again, I like that you're just making moves. I think that's not enough for Mark Andrews. No, Andrews side. Sorry. I mean, it doesn't kill your team or nothing, to be clear, but that's the Mark Andrews side for me. Now I'm looking at getting Jamar Chase for Nick Chubb. Do that. Especially if you're building, you get Jamar Chase for Nick Chubb. Honestly, I think that's fair. Nick Chubb's an amazing player, by the way. People underrate that. Well, they don't. He's valued him in the top 12 forever, but maybe I undervalue it. He's legitimately pretty amazing what he does. Anyway, and Jamar Chase is a different kind of dynasty asset, though. Do that. You do that, you've pretty much made up for the Mark Andrews differential there. Because long term, even though Nick Chubb is probably still a great player next year, his value almost halves. I think I'm predicting what other people are going to do here about what other people are going to do. So there's a lot of leeway here. Feel free to disagree. But I think this offseason, people are going to see their ages and young players and Barkley getting injured and CMC getting injured. And we're really going to fade running back in ADP a little bit. Chubb will still be high because he's amazing. But he's older. He got injured this season, even if it's only for a few games, however that works out. So, yes. That would be a trade I would concentrate on. Peter, wouldn't you want to start a slot wide receiver with little competition, playing with a backup QP and playing against a strong run defense with injuries to the linebacker? I have no idea. Would I start a slot wide receiver in a tough running back matchup with a backup QB? No. I mean, I get the strong argument there. And if you're just looking... It's week 7. I get it. We're looking for anything to stick in. I could easily make it up on targets and volume based on your description here. No. I wouldn't know. Let's talk about Ruggs instead. I did, to be fair. Sorry, I'm getting really far behind now. Ruggs is turning into something special. I'm telling you. I mean, I would love to see it. If you could add the volume to his skill set, then that would be great. And he definitely could. Remember, I don't player evaluate so much as compare what players are doing compared to what players have done in the past. Because I'm just an idiot. I'm definitely not a GM or a coach or a player evaluator or a scout. I'm just trying to make not stupid decisions from someone who really enjoys watching football and likes playing fantasy football. So could he do that? Yeah, definitely. Anything can happen. And he seems to be a good player. I would be surprised by it. But I've been surprised before. I'm rooting for it. Richard, team is Dak, Nick Chubb, Miles Sanders, Elijah Mitchell, Chubb, Sanders, and Mitchell are fair to sell away if you're rebuilding. Pollard, he's on IR now, so he probably doesn't have value. ETN hold for now. We'll see how that works out. CD, because you just traded from A-Rob. I'm nervous about Robinson, but at this point, yeah. Claypool, good buy for the future. Bateman, same thing. Gallup, he's injured as well. I was going to say he's more value to trade right now, but no, he's injured. Kittle, good on a rebuilding team. Trey Lance, good on a rebuilding team as your main guy. It's cool. Yeah, and you're right. You're highlighting the right players. Sell Chubb, sell Sanders, sell Mitchell. Target Jamar Chase if you can get him, for sure. Also trade, I think it's Kittle for Pitts and Ayuk. I hate it. You should probably do, if you could get that trade done, yes, you should. Pitts' value is much more secure than Kittle's. And Ayuk is kind of a throw in there. Like if Bob Gilchrist was still here from earlier, he's a big guy over the Dynasty trade calculator. Like he would tell you every time, snap, accept that trade. And yeah, he's smarter than me. And I'm at least smart enough to know he would say that's an amazing deal, which is about my level. That's an overpay. Learn from it, Richard. You're talking about the Andrews trade. You start Ruggs every week. I mean, there is something to not being scared of the variance. Actually, I can actually answer that. Well, not that you asked a question, but I was wondering how many weeks has he been usable? Because if it's over like the top 24 average, then I'm wrong, actually. No, he's at 33% of his weeks, so 30% of how many games has he played? 6. So 3 games he's finished inside the top 24. That's actually not terrible. That's better than I thought it was. Fair point. Mark Andrews could be the tight end 1 that's selling low for. No, Travis Kelce is the tight end 1, but Mark Andrews is the other guy this year. I thought it was Darren Waller, and then I thought it was Kittle. Turns out, and I thought I knew Mark Andrews had the potential, but there's a ranking issue here. And it turns out I think it's going to be Mark Andrews. You're right in that he's difference making this year. And he's done it before. That's the thing. Once a player does that, I keep an extra eye on them. Thoughts on McKissick this week? This week, I'm actually looking at my projections. And it's not just my projections. I wouldn't trust them if it was. I actually use an average to compare how my Vegas model spat out what's actually going to happen this week. Okay. Why didn't I pull them up? I think I was a little low on McKissick. I am. Consensus has J.D. McKissick as a top 20 running back start. So he's startable below top 36 wide receivers, based on the history trends that I use. So he's a decent start in a flex spot. He's a decent start as a running back too. Flex spot, it gets a little more tenacious. I'm particularly low on him this week, or the Vegas model is. Trying to figure out why. Well, Vegas is projecting them for a team total of 20 points, and based on their offensive split in touchdowns to the running back and the wide receiver and their opponent's split, because they use an average of both, they're meant to get like nearly two receiving touchdowns, and they might get a rushing touchdown. And that low probability of a rushing touchdown kind of has J.D. McKissick a little low, where we would expect Terry McLaurin to catch the touchdown in the receiving game, and that second touchdown is not guaranteed based on what Vegas expects them to do this week. And so where I just run a Vegas model, and that puts him as running back 29. Overall, I think he's a very startable running back too. I think he's a sketchy flex start. I would start most wide receivers in the top 36 over him. Thoughts on Gaskin? Crushing, soul crushing, disappointing, pain. Those. I was a big fan. And still am, of Gaskin this year. Like, I really thought he could be one. I thought he was Darrell Henderson light. Like, he was going to be that value at even more of a discount. And it's just been so hit or miss. I think the players got talent. I think Miami is messed up. I think Malcolm Brown is decent, and it's just working into this weird game-by-game matchup-dependent mix. I like the player. I think he's capable. I think the team usage is just... At some point, you have to expect the team to keep being inconsistent in their usage. I know for a guy who tries to volume, it's a really weird thing to read, because you want volume to just be the signal, but then volume is hit or miss week to week, and so you really don't know where to put your chips. He's a decent spot start as a running back too, but unless that team smooths out his running back usage, it's going to keep being this painful thing. I really do like the player, though. I think he's very good, especially as a receiver. More so even as a receiver than a rusher, but he's got both, which is what made him interesting. The slot wide receiver is Demetric Felton. Yeah, he jumped up actually in my projections. I knew who you were talking about. What did I end up doing with it? Yeah, he's a top 36 running back by consensus. I ended up adjusting slightly his previous touchdown history to get him in line, because mine honestly shot him up kind of too far. I think he's a decent running back 2 spot, especially in the bike-apocalypse. He's listed as a running back, by the way. I know he's a wide receiver, but sites are listing him as a running back. Go figure. I don't know why he's not a wide receiver. Richard Davis. Also, I got Andrews for Chris Carson straight up before his injury. I mean, what that means is you didn't give up too much, but you still gave up too much. Like there's something called what do they call it? Sunk cost fallacy, and you've kind of got the reverse working here. Because I didn't pay much for him, I'm not losing much, but you still lost to Mark Andrews. If you know what I mean? It's not that I don't understand your reasoning. It's that you actually could have, not that you could have. I don't know your league. Maybe this was the best, and in which case it's fine. But value-wise, he was meant to, on average, bring more. And again, don't feel the need to defend it, man. It's your team. And ultimately, you're happy with where you came to. And looking at your roster, you got plenty of things to trade. If you get Jamar Chase, that would be a big win for you. It didn't kill your team. And 1 or 2 or everyone else's opinion really doesn't matter if you're happy with it. But going forward, or if you want to incorporate that into going forward, just because you don't get him for a little bit doesn't mean you have to sell him for a lot. Doesn't mean you can't sell them for a lot. Yeah. And to be fair, Chris Carson, a little underrated. The injury was unfortunate this year, but again, a little more likely when you're a running back. My team, hey Rob Downs. My team is Christian McCaffrey, Hubbard. Nice to have him right now, I guess. Montgomery, Herbert, Handcuffs. Thoughts on long run? Oh, you're asking me about Khalil Herbert? Really solid. Should get the volume next to Hubbard. Like long term. Let me think if there's a better way of saying this. He's a short-term play, but as long as that short-term play is available, I think the volume will keep coming, you know? I've got him predicted inside the top 25 running back this week. And that's about consensus, actually. He's a solid running back to start. It's actually a fairly difficult, by my strength of schedule, rush matchup. Like Tampa Bay doesn't allow or doesn't get a lot of volume against them. It's probably because everyone's trying to pass to keep up with Tom Brady, to be fair. But they are scoring more rushing touchdowns in Tampa Bay, interestingly, per game. It's interesting. But they're a very effective unit, so teams are passing on them. So that might be a little exaggerated, to be fair. And let's see. I don't actually know. What's Herbert been doing over there? I was wondering about his role. I actually don't know how much he was involved in one or the other. Rushing or receiving. See, I've got him at 80 yards per touchdown, 12% chance of getting a receiving touchdown, 45% of getting a rushing touchdown for that team this week. That's solid. That's actually solid usage in both phases of the game, which means he could still have upside, even though it might be more of a receiving matchup. That's what I was looking for. Yeah, he's a solid running back too this week. CMC, Hubbard and Montgomery. Are they all on bye or something this week? I don't understand the rest of it. Again, that's my fault, not yours. And I'm a bit of a dullard. Are you asking whether you would start Herbert over Hubbard? Because I wouldn't. I would start Hubbard over Herbert. And the other one you asked about was Montgomery. I thought it can't be David Montgomery because he's out, right? I've got Leo Herbert as the starter this week. And I wouldn't start Herbert over Hubbard, but I would start Herbert as a running back 2 this week. I have 2 first 2023 and 2 first 2024 picks, assuming going forward. So I'm hoping by then my team will be rebuilt and a powerhouse. I love the passion here, Richard. It comes off the page that you're working real hard on this team. We keep going. That's what you have to do. You just got to invest yourself in what you want to do with your team, and I think you'll be successful because you're working hard on it. So this isn't a note you're doing something wrong. I would say never be afraid to come closer to the deadline. Like you're acquiring all this value in 2023 and 2024. But if you get an offer that's more immediate, like the 2022 class is meant to be bad. And if everyone's like, get me out the 2022 class. And so it becomes possible to get good trades trading back closer to now instead of further into the future. I'm not saying to do that. I'm saying don't discount it because you could increase your perceived rebuild date. And you should be trying to be fair. What you're doing is great, but never be afraid to speed up the process because you want to win as soon as possible. And while trading for future value is great, never be afraid to trade it again to something closer to now because you can still build your team with it, but you could increase the speed at which you get around to being competitive. That's just a note, like put it in the back of your mind. Maybe a trade comes along or something happens where you're like, I could actually get more competitive sooner, and I wouldn't be afraid of doing that. In fact, I'd be trying, but that's me. And yeah, I figured I traded away Chris Carson, perfectly fine, for Mark Andrews and a 2024 first. Wow, you guys trade those long distance picks, which is great. In the sense that your league is actively trading, and also if picks are available for the 2024 class, I think on most leagues you have to make those available on most setups. That means you're planning for the long term. I love it when a dynasty league survives. That's normally a good sign of a healthy league anyway, which I'm not mad about. And especially being 0-6. Yeah, I get it. Yeah. Rob Down, sorry for long-term handcuff team build strategy. My other running backs are outside the top 30. No, don't apologize, Rob. You're fine. Like I said, I'm just a dullard sometimes, and I have a hard time understanding. Long-term handcuff strategy. I like the idea. Like you could see coming in advance. And so, yeah, we talked about backup running backs and handcuff running backs so much this off or before, just as this season started. There's a small edge to rostering someone else's handcuff. There is, just probabilistically, but it's tiny. And, a lot of handcuff running backs are not the handcuff running back. That's JJ Zacharyason's research where he found most of the running backs we draft as handcuffs turn out not to be the handcuff. Khalil Herbert, I'm pretty sure, wasn't drafted as a handcuff. Case in point. But we also underrate that element in Dynasty in that most handcuff running backs, whether they're the actual handcuffs or not, tend not to be on the waiver wire because waiver wires in Dynasty are a lot thinner. There's more roster spots. People are thinking more long term, and they're looking for backups. So if you're asking me, should you and do you? Increasingly as the season goes on, you're looking for your handcuff, and you're in a Dynasty league. By year 3, the handcuff should be well solidified. They're on rosters, So, yeah, it's not a solid strategy. I'd say you should be expecting to do it. At a certain point, like, not again too far into it, but I was looking at my roster where I'm trying to win. I was like, maybe I should go trade for ETN. Just because I really like James Robinson, it looks like I'm keeping him, and I put some thought into it. Not that he's a handcuff, but you get what I mean. It becomes more incentive to try to lock up a backfield in Dynasty, even though the edge is doing the opposite, especially when you're thinking on a season-by-season basis or a startup draft or a redraft draft. Again, the deeper you get into a season, even based on that small edge, it disappears. By like week 8, there is no edge in rostering someone else's running back because would you start them? It becomes part of the question. And instead, it's actually more upside to roster your own running back. That was also missed in the conversation that got shouted at John Hogue this offseason, by the way. Yeah, I'm definitely counting, definitely discount. Yeah, see, people are discounting the 2022 class. But here's the thing. Some of the best players come from the worst, legitimately worst classes. Keenan Allen, DeAndre Hopkins, they came from an god-awful draft class. Christian McCaffrey came from, wasn't the 2017 class, which was heralded as a terrible class, and it was for wide receiver. The running back was fine. And so feel free to dig into the class. And if you're getting them cheaper, but there's actually this reverse mindset where you're trading for value by actually moving up because they're undervalued. And so, yeah, I'm not saying definitely do this thing, but just, it's worth keeping an eye on. Look for value wherever it lies, whether it's sooner, whether it's further away. And it has the benefit of maybe making your team more competitive earlier. And then you can trade it away when they score points. So, and it doesn't derail your timeline necessarily, or in fact, it could move it up. That's, can't post comments to some destinations. I don't know why it's sending me that note. All right, guys. I think I'm getting out of here. I'm tired. My voice is about to die. Anything else before we go? Next week, I'm hoping Dynasty Outhouse is able to come back to us. If not, John Hogue. If not, one of the other DLF contributors. Because, talk to me every week. This was fun for 1 week, but I'm pretty sure you get overly bored with me. Most people do. If it was just me every week. But we'll get someone back on next week. I really appreciate you all checking out. Those were active and really fun questions. Really appreciate it. And especially all those that keep coming back. And hey, Joannis, you're great. I really appreciate it. And talking to me every week. So I'm not just staring here into the void, as is my want. Really appreciate it. I will check you all out next week. We do this show normally with someone else to talk to, normally Dynasty Outhouse, who's much nice. We needed a break from all that niceness, though, to be perfectly honest. Like, you get tired of someone just being that genuinely nice and helpful. You know what I mean? But he'll be back sometime, and it'll be great. And we do this every Wednesday at 9:30. The theme of the show is takeaway. So what just happened? What should we do? So we're a little more immediately focused with long-term goals. I think it's interesting because normally in Dynasty, we're talking about start-sits like everyone else. We're talking about what to do in the long-distance future. I think thinking long distance about immediate events is, I think it's a slight angle that we don't talk about nearly enough. And hopefully you're enjoying it. Anyway, let us know. And we'll see you every Wednesday at 9:30. And I'll see you next Wednesday as well. Again, hopefully Russ will be back. Appreciate it. Bye.